Good evening. This is the Budget and Finance Committee. Today is Wednesday, June 1st, 2022. It is now 6:49 p.m. With us, I have voting members, Councilor De Rosario, Councilor Rodriguez, Councilor Ana Levy, and myself as the chair. Before we begin, I'll read the following. Pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2022, this meeting of the Budget and Finance Committee is being conducted both in person and via remote participation. A reminder that persons who would like to listen or view this meeting while in progress may either attend in person here at the chambers or go to our Facebook or YouTube page. Before we begin, if you can all please join me as we say the Pledge of Allegiance. Cal,
So move.
Second.
there's a motion to get us out of recess by Councilor Rodriguez. Has been seconded by Councilor Ana Levy. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Councilors, I'm going to make a small adjustment to our agenda. The Greater Lawrence Technical School is having their graduation tomorrow, and we've been asked to hear them first. So if we could have the representatives, Mr. LeBoy, to come up. Thank you for joining us, sir.
Good evening, Chairman and Councilors. Thank you for having me this evening, and I want to say a special thank you to the councilors and all the citizens and members of the City of Lawrence for all the support they continue to give Greater Lawrence Technical School in so many ways. I do want to, before I start on the budget, just highlight a couple of things that we try to. One of our main goals is always to try to continue to add more programming to support the citizens and the needs of the city in terms of preparing its young people as well as its older citizens for opportunities for new programming and entering new fields of study. So just to give you some examples, in our day program, we have from the City of Lawrence, as of our October 1st report, 1,232 students from the City of Lawrence. We consider our school to be one of Lawrence's high schools, and each year we tend to get more and more students. This year we had about almost 1,600 students apply to Greater Lawrence, of which 80% of those students were from the City of Lawrence. And it looks like that we are looking at right now approximately about 330 to 340 new students coming in next year in the freshman class. We also have what we call the After Dark program, where we take students from Lawrence High School from 2:30 to 5:30 every day, 11th and 12th graders who start at Lawrence High at 11 o'clock and then come to us for 3 hours every day. This year we had 52 students. Next year we'll have 95 students. Each year we continue to grow, offering those opportunities. And then a new opportunity that we've offered starting this 26th of June, we will have approximately 60 high school students entering a new program, what's called CTI program, Career Technical Institute, for kids who are not going on to college or have no skills or pathways coming out of Lawrence High, will now have the opportunity to enter 3 different career areas where they'll get 300 hours of training in the area of to become electricians, HVAC technicians, and machine technicians starting June 26, and they'll go to September, and when they complete the program, they'll enter with a job in that work field, which is a brand new program, first of its kind in the state, that we are offering to the high school students to try to help young people get a good start where they may not have had any opportunity or any pathway or skills, now have this new opportunity. So we're always looking to support the citizens of the city in many ways as we can and in many of opportunity. Many of our programs, extracurricular programs, the field is constantly used by young people in the city after hours. We're building a fourth phase in our field project just to support some of the youth programming for the city of Lawrence. So we are very committed to doing what we can to support the city. So I just wanted to give note of that. If I'd like to start in terms of our budget on page, if you look at section 4 of the budget booklet that we had sent out to you yesterday, I'll go through the City of Lawrence's assessment and our overall budget in terms of funding that's coming from the state and from the city itself. So it starts off at the top of the page, fiscal year 23 preliminary budget, which is a budget that was presented by the governor and still needs final approval from the legislators. But for state, at this time, state aid, Chapter 78 from the state, we are receiving $32,407,639, which is up about $2,547,699. For the City of Lawrence's assessment as determined by the state is $1,481,533. With our other 3 sending communities, that's a total contribution from our communities of $6,645,884. Our miscellaneous revenue is $100,000, and our E&D revenue, which we are contributing to, is $1 million for a total of $1,100,000. For a total foundation revenue budget of $40,453,523, which is an increase of $5,237,714. The reason for the increase, substantial increase, is that we've continued to take on more students each year. Our student population on October 1st was this year 1,665 students. So we continue to grow, look for opportunities to add new programming. Next year alone, we'll be adding 2 new programs. Environmental Science is a new Chapter 74 program, which we'll be able to offer to our students. And we, for the first time, will be offering a postgraduate program for high school students graduating. Will be able to enter into a postgraduate program, which is robotics automation technician, which will be our first venture in 40 years in the postgraduate as a first pilot program. And then we hope to continue expanding that program after we finish this first program to offer more opportunities for students who graduate from the high school upon graduation. An option other than college, the postgraduate opportunity will offer at no cost to the students. So another opportunity for preparing for the work world. On the next page is under Section 5 is non-foundation assessments. So for non-foundation, for the City of Lawrence, for net busing is $769,480.12. For OPED trust fund is $76,717. For fixed assets is $383,587, and long-term debt is $428,682 for a total non-foundation assessment of $1,658,466.12 for a total of both foundation plus non-foundation assessment of $3,139,999.12. And that's total assessment for the city. Any questions?
Councilors, are there any questions? Yes. Councilor Rodriguez.
Well, again, thank you for being here today to discuss this budget. So one thing that I actually would like to get from you from next year, for next year, is to have the booklet a little earlier, and that way we can go over the numbers, so we can ask proper questions ahead of time. So my question will be more to Mark Iannello, if it's there, so I can have a little bit of clarity on this. So,
Sure.
Mike, on page 8 of that city budget, on section 031, the vocational school assessment, so we have 3,147,999.
You said page 8, Counselor?
Yeah.
Yep.
And then section 31.
Oh, yeah, yep. 3,147,999 is what we put in the budget.
So, and then the assessment from them is a little different. Why is that? I mean, this is something that need to be adjusted, or something that it will be reflecting this number eventually, or what?
That's the number we had when we put the budget together. I don't know if it changed slightly at the GLTS, but it is. I can see it's 3,139,999. So it may change again with the final cherry sheet, I think, as John just mentioned. The final state aid will come out sometime in the end of June, and there could be a small adjustment up or down. Usually when it goes down, we don't usually cut the appropriation, but if it goes up another 50,000 or so, we'll be back in front of the council for a supplemental appropriation to meet our minimum funding requirement.
Yeah. All right, thank you so much. I have a few questions in regard to the school now. Obviously, the school is based on the numbers, is something that it is extremely convenient for the city of Lawrence. 80% of the students from the student population from there are going there, and they are from Lawrence. And this is a tremendous investment, but at the same time, it's a great investment for the students and for the city of Lawrence. So now I wanted to just talking overall about the school in general. Lately, we've been talking about safety in regard to the school, from the school system in Lawrence, and I wanted you to take a few minutes to talk to us about what you guys are doing there in terms of safety, that things are working, and so we can take some ideas as to what you guys doing, and then maybe provide that information to others.
Sure. So I can talk a little bit about what some of our safety protocols and procedures at the school. Well, it begins with once the students are in the building, they get off the bus, they come in the building, we have for anyone to enter onto the property, they have to come through a gated system where there's a security and a gate down, and they have to state their business and who they're coming to see at the school. With the security person, no one is permitted to go around the back of the school. They have to park in the front and do their business coming through the front door. And when they get to the front, they have to have had an appointment with somebody in order to enter the building, and then we have someone come and get them and bring them to the many times to where they're going in the building as one security measure. All the doors in the building are kept locked at all times. We have in the building, we have cameras throughout the building. We have about 135 cameras in the building, and we have about 30 cameras outside the building that are operational at all times. We have in the building, we have a security team where we have a security officer, a school officer from the town of Andover that's in the building at all times. We have 4 other security people within the building that have different sections of the buildings that they oversee. Also to support the hallways and the cafeteria whenever we have students in the cafeteria. They also they for the most part, both of them have degrees in areas not only of security but education. So we use our security system also to educate and work with our students in understanding safety procedures and protocols within the building, and also building strong relationships with the students. All of our security system personnel have strong relationships with the students. Our two deans, we have two deans that are overseeing discipline and security in the building, and they also have very strong relationship with the students. They know all the students. They build, particularly students that may have difficulties within, whether it's their class or other issues. They build good relationship with the students, and they constantly have communications with the parents. That's part of our process in terms of ensuring that we know each and every student, and so it works well. I think one of the advantages we have at GLTS in terms of helping keep the school safe is that because we have an environment where we have shops, our shop teachers get very close to the students, and so they have, because they're working in a shop environment where it's not as structured, they get opportunities to really talk and know the kids, and so the kids really tell them almost everything. So if there's something going on in the school, we pretty much know much sooner than it's going to happen. So we're very fortunate in that way that we have an environment where kids respect the adults and the adults respect the students, and that makes a difference in terms of security as well, so we can stay on top of that situation. So those are kind of our basic security measures that we use within the school, have worked well for us.
Thank you so much. I will have two more questions in regard to the school. I wanted to ask you about the solar partner farms. I keep on wondering about that, how you guys are doing with that.
The solar farm? So I would say it's been about 6 years, maybe 6 years now, that we went into an agreement with a private enterprise. They did an analysis on our school to determine how much energy we use in the school, and it was determined that we use about 4.4 million kilowatts of power every year. So the farm was, we went into a contract with the company to build a farm in which the company owns the farm, and we own the energy. So all the energy that's produced on the farm we own, and what it does is those credits, energy that the solar farm produces goes to the grid, and we get credit for that energy towards our electric bill. And initially when we opened the farm, we were utilizing 4.5 million kilowatts. We're now down to about 2.5 kilowatts of energy. And so we're buying our energy about at 60% of market rate. That's approximately what the cost is for our energy. And then we own in excess of about 1.5 million to 2 million extra kilowatts, 1 million kilowatts of energy, which we sell to another school. We sell that energy to Neshoba Tech, and that money goes into to help offset our utility bills every year. So we've been very fortunate that it's been a very successful endeavor. At one point, when we were initially trying to sell the excess energy, we went to our communities to see if they were interested in purchasing that extra energy. None of our communities wanted to buy it, so then we put it out to vocational schools, and Neshoba Tech was interested in purchasing it. So they purchased and at a reduced rate, so they're saving a substantial amount of money as well. And we're putting money into right now, we have in excess of probably somewhere around $350,000 in that account to offset our utility bills, which then saves us money that we can put back investing into educational resources and supporting our students educationally is how we utilize that fund.
And my final question will be in regard to one of your board members, representing Lawrence, brought up a program regarding to the APER and regarding to the aerospace for students to be exposed to those type of opportunities. I haven't heard back Like, are we adopting that program at all? Vivian Marmor brought up to,
Which program is it? Oh, the aviation program.
Yes.
Oh, so we're still working, the aviation program is on target to, our goal is to open it not this September, a year from now, because there are a lot of, first of all, we need to find a space in which to put the program, so we need a hangar space. So we're trying to work with the airport, with the manager who's here tonight, to look at, is there a possibility for us to seek some kind of space out at the airport in which to put the program? So that's our first goal. We're also have to get certified, FAA certification for the program. We have to have it approved by the Department of Education. So we're working on all that process now, hoping to open the program a year from September. But it looks good from everything that we've done so far. We've also met with a school out in Westfield that has the only other aviation program in the state is at Westfield Academy. We met with them out there to look at their program, to see some of the preparation we have to do. The state just revised the frameworks, the curriculum frameworks, in order to put a program in place and all the criteria you need in order to get approval for. So that's just been completed, was completed in January, so we're now utilizing that. So we are in the approval process. We've already put some documentation in with the Department of Education. We've met with some of the transportation transportation board out in Boston for the state of Massachusetts, who will work with us as well to get the program. So we feel confident that we will be able to get that program up and running a year from September.
all right, thank you so much, and I'm glad that that program has been in progress, and you guys are working in partnership with the APER,
Yes.
the City of Lawrence APER, and many other organizations to make it happen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilors, are there any other questions? Councilor Levy?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I would like to know what is the E&D revenue, because I didn't see that you had any money last year, but in here it's showing $1 million.
So it's excess and deficiency funding, so it's basically our savings account. So when we have extra money that's not part of foundation money, but it's part of money that we may have earned from different revenues that come into the school, that money goes into a savings account. We have about we were just certified, and it has to be certified each year by the state. We were certified for $1,350,000. So we put $1 million of that money into the next year's budget because we have to repave all of our parking lot. So rather than reassess our communities to pay for that parking lot, we took the money out of our savings account because our parking lot has a lot of potholes and is in desperate need of upgrading. So we're going to use that $1 million and have that redone this summer. That's why and that has to be approved as part of our budget with our communities, and that's why you're seeing that E&D.
So practically from the $1 million and something that you had, now you're gonna keep it like the rest, and you're gonna use it $1 million.
Yes.
Okay.
And then over time.
It's gonna be for the parking, you say,
Yes,
for
yep.
repay the parking.
Yeah, and we expect over time, you'll see over time that our excess and deficiency account will grow back again, and we use it for things that we can't get funding either from the state, or we don't want to reassess extra dollars to our communities. We try to use that money.
Okay, thank you so much.
Welcome.
And thank you for the great job that you are doing, and also that's the Lawrence school has been doing also with our children. I think so that you have a very great programs for them.
Thank you.
Thank you. The chair would like to recognize that in the room we have school committee member Frank Cirillo from Methuen. Thank you, Mr. Cirillo, former Lawrence Public School committee member as well, for being in the room and for being here in support of GLTS. Mr. LeBoy, I just have a couple of quick questions. Can you talk to me about what are the percentage of teachers and staff that are Latino? I'm very concerned, and this is across the board with all the public schools, about the Latino teacher pipeline. And, you know, I'm looking to see if there are any programs, or is there anything being done to ensure that that your school has people that look like the kids that are attending the school?
Yeah. So I'm not sure exactly what our percentage is of our whole staff. I would say it's somewhere between 15 and 20%. I just did a report for the school committee on what the percentage is over the last 5 years, and it's averaged out. Our hiring over the last 5 years is somewhere around 20%. This year actually is looking like it's going to be higher. It's going to be closer to 30%. So we are working on putting together. In fact, part of my goals this year was to come up with strategies and ways of getting more people of color, minorities for our staff. Everything from custodian to administrators, to increase the number of people of color that we have. And part of the challenge for us has been to get more people to apply. So, you know, it's easy for us to post and just wait and hope that we get the applications, but we understand we have to do more than that. So we're looking at ways that we can do that. So to give you an example, some of the things that we've been working on this year is we're doing an analysis on our website to see if it's inviting in terms of is there any indications that we're not welcoming minorities. I've been part of a workshop with the Department of Education that I've attended 6 sessions so far this year, and working on ways to encourage more people of minorities to apply at Greater Lawrence Technical School. I've done a workshop to teach, and we've advertised throughout the community to try to get more people of color to come and explain to them how to become a teacher, a vocational teacher. We had 40 apply for the program. 22 applied and came to the program. It was in hopes of encouraging more, particularly in the vocational area, people to learn how to become a vocational teacher. We've reached out. We've just sent out, in fact, some information to our graduates who have graduated in the last 10 years, because we have probably 70% of our graduates have been people of color, which has resulted in, just yesterday, I hired a new plumbing teacher that was a graduate of the school 11 years ago, and we've got two other graduates that are coming to teach for us next year. So we recognize that we need to do more in order to change the percentage that we have for our staffing in terms of that area.
That's great, and I appreciate that you mentioned that it's not just about posting a job, that you have to do more to do the reach out, and I think that that's true for any organization.
Yeah.
I'm interested, no rush in this information, but one of the things that I'm interested in seeing is the percentage of students that are Latinos.
Yep.
And percentage of just numbers when it comes to staff, not overall staff. I'm looking at teachers and administrators
Okay.
that are Latino as well. And then overall, I'd like to know the people that are working at GLTS, how many of them are coming from Lawrence.
Okay.
So those are things, you know, kind of data that I'm interested in. Doesn't mean like I need it tomorrow, but, you know, I know you have a graduation to plan, but
Yeah.
if sometime next week or before we present the budget, if you can send that to us, I'd be
Sure.
greatly appreciated.
Yeah,
I think it's important, you know, as you guys are thinking that, you know, it's great, especially when we're spending public dollars, that the public dollars, if there are opportunities for people that are from the community to work there, for that, you know, for a special effort to be made to do that. But I think, so that's one piece. I think the other piece, which is key, is I think it is important, having been someone from, that went to school here in Lawrence and graduated from Lawrence High School, it is vital seeing people that are like you in positions of power. So that means not, you know, I think, I didn't go to GLTS, but, you know, our janitors were amazing. Our cafeteria workers, amazing people that really, really cared for the kids. But it's different when you see a teacher, it's different when you see a principal, or, you know, basically an administrator, that you could look up and see like, oh, like maybe I want to do that, and are able to maneuver you or help you think about things in ways that others can't. So I will say that, you know, between now and the next year, that's something that I'm interested in learning more about what your school is doing to that, and I hope, you know, I'm hearing from you, and it sounds like some work is being done on that. I hope that some strong work is continue to be had, so we can see some huge gains. And I think that when you have people that are from different cultures and ethnicities within your office, that's just going to make your office stronger. So having more BIPOC teachers, you know, it doesn't necessarily have to be just Latino teachers, but, you know, BIPOC teachers, I think there'll be some great benefits with the students on that.
Right. I could answer.
School committee member, if you can just state your name for the record.
Francisco Cirillo, 824 Riverside Drive, Methuen, represent State of Methuen and the Greater Lawrence Technical School. So one of the things that we actually also are doing, and research will tell you one of the biggest barriers for teachers of colors is the MTEL or the VTEL test program to licensure. So one of the things we are doing this year is we're offering a VTEL and MTEL preparation program to help teachers start, and especially teachers of color, to become educated in the school system.
Well, thank you. I look forward to hearing more. Counselors, are there any other questions?
Yes.
Counselor Rodriguez?
So, if you could, can you please send us a quick report on the adult evening classes
Programs.
opportunities?
Yeah.
And also, I was wondering about the school choice. So you guys are receiving students from other
No.
municipalities, or you guys are sending over?
We're not a school choice.
No, we don't take students from outside of our district.
Okay.
Our waiting list to get in is extremely long to offer school choice.
Yeah, because I was looking at the 2021 revolving accounts, and it's mentioned it there, so.
Outside the district, but are actually.
Mr. LeBoy, if you could, Superintendent LeBoy, if you can speak to the mic. Thank you.
What page are you looking at, Counselor?
But fiscal year 2021 revolving accounts. So it's right before the section 10. Assuming that that's a typo, fiscal year 2021.
What section is
So-
it in? What section are you looking at?
Section 9, the last page of section 9.
Oh, section 9.
So it's only
So
one
if you look for section 10, it's just one page before that.
That's the balance of the last year you have closed.
Okay.
So that's why it's not 22, it's not over yet.
Oh,
So
oh, oh.
that is not a typo. I'm sorry, I believe that is the revolving fund balances as of 6/30/2021, which is the last year that's closed. 22 isn't over yet, so I think that's correct.
So just to report, if you guys are not school choice, that's basically saying that.
Yeah.
And everything that is in regard to that adult evening classes.
So, trying to look at school choice, where you're looking at. Oh, I see.
231.
Yep, yep. That's funds that we get from students that belong to Greater Lawrence but are going somewhere else. Like there's a few kids a few students over at at Whittier Tech, and I think there might be a couple at Neshoba Tech. So we get funding for those students that are not coming to Greater Lawrence but belong to our district, and that's the revenue from that, those students. They're not kids that come from other school,
Okay.
other district to us.
All right, understood.
Yep.
Can you send us a quick report on that and the
Oh,
adult
sure.
evening classes? Thank you.
Absolutely.
Counselors, any other questions? If not, thank you so much, Superintendent LeBoy. We won't be there tomorrow because we have a budget hearing, or I
Okay.
hope that my members will be here tomorrow. But
Yeah.
we wish you good luck and congrats to all the
Thank you.
youth that are graduating. Thank you, and thank you for the members of the committee for all the work that you guys do.
Thank you.
All right. You have a good
Appreciate
evening.
all your support.
Yes,
Thank you.
definitely.
Bye-bye.
All right, moving next, we'll go back on schedule. If we could have the airport come up next. If you can please state your name and title so that everyone, we know you, but everyone watching knows who you are as well.
So thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mike Miller, I've had the privilege of being your airport director, and I reside at 90 South Bowden Street in Lawrence. According to my printouts from your budget book, the airport department's budget starts on page 166. It's the high-level view. And from that, you will see that we are proposing a budget of $603,313. And again, that budget will be funded with revenues generated at the airport. There'll be no general funds or public taxpayer dollars going to support this department again. If you turn to page 168, that's where we'll get into the details. And I should say, can everybody hear me okay? Okay, thank you.
Perfect.
If you start with personal services, you'll see that we haven't increased any personnel. We are still operating with 4 full-time employees and 1 part-time recording secretary for the commission. There are increases where they were due to contractual obligations, as well as an increase in overtime based upon my assessment of trending over the years and the needs that I forecast for next year. If you look down at our purchases of services, you'll see that there's a significant increase in energy, and that is due to what we forecast as, and I think it's being proven, an increase in natural gas and electricity rates. So we understand that we're going to have higher costs next year. We'd like to cover them with that. And then further down, you'll see that we have increased due to contractual obligations for solid waste. And our telephone system, we had upgraded the security and access control system at the airport. It is now a cloud-based system, and that required a more robust internet connection that Comcast was able to offer us, so we had to subscribe to Verizon. So that's why you see a difference in that of $1,200. That's to cover our new internet and telephone communication system through Verizon. Further on down, under our other purchased services, you will see an increase of $8,000. That is in part to having to cover, and we haven't subscribed to it yet, but anticipating between $5,000 and $10,000 for a maintenance service for that new security and access control system, as well as contracting with USDA Wildlife. Part of our responsibilities is to provide for a safe transportation facility, and when you have deer and coyote running around, you have to remove them as an obligation to our grants. So we contract with USDA Wildlife. They have all the proper federal and state permits, and that relieves us and allows us to comply with that federal requirement. So you'll see an increase for other purchase of services there. As you go down, you'll see other assessments under intergovernmental. That $13,954 increase is given to us by the city. I heard you discussing last night about pension assessments. That's what that figure is. It's based upon the payroll of the department, and it's calculated by the controller's office. Actually, I think it's given to them by the retirement board. If I misspoke, Mark can correct me. Following through, you'll see some reductions on the next page for other charges and expenses. And further on down, there's reductions in some of our capital outlay and additional equipment, trying within the spirit of keeping a budget as close as we possibly can to being a level-funded budget, but where we had to make increases, we did. At the end of the day, $603,313 for overall operating budget expenses. And again, the airport's revenues as an enterprise account will fund 100% of those costs. And I'm available for any questions that the council may have.
Thank you, Director. I just have one question. With page 168, there's energy cost, 45,000 was put in for FY '22. Only around 30,000 was spent as of April. It is your view that the rest of that by June is going to be spent?
It should be. I mean, Principal's Counselor Sorley is here, and she knows the bills. She knows what has to go out, what has to be paid, and what's in the pipeline. So, yes, I would state that that will be liquidated by the end of this fiscal year.
Can you, so, and there's an increase of 7,000. So when we're talking about energy, are we talking about electricity? Are we talking about fuel costs?
Electricity and natural gas,
Okay.
not gasoline or diesel. That's separate line items.
Okay.
So that's what that's for.
All right, thank you. Council members, are there any questions? Councilor Rodriguez.
Thank you again for being here. This is, I think, 5 to 6
It's my
years
pleasure.
that we have discussed this. The budget looked pretty lenient, very similar to previous years. So can you talk to us about the revenue, how the enterprise for the APR is getting
Sure,
funds?
gladly. I'm proud to say our revenues derive from long-term ground leases, from operational expenses for landings and fuel flowage, and for the healthier businesses are, the more we make, we get a percentage of gross based upon that lease. 90% of the airport's revenue comes from long-term, stable ground leases, so we have somewhat insulated from economic cycles in that respect. And we use that money then, the rates and charges that we charge our tenants, to then fund all our operations.
So when you say, so you lease some of the properties that are there,
We do.
and you say long-term lease, what do you mean by that?
Under the law, the Airport Commission is empowered to grant a 20-year lease, and then anything beyond that requires city council approval. So the commission is allowed, as long as for an aviation purpose, to lease out space for hangar development or for aeronautical businesses. And that's, we're working with the vocational school right now to find a location on the airport for them, whether it be raw land that has to be developed with infrastructure work, or possibly they're thinking about acquiring an existing building. The airport only owns 2 buildings, the operations maintenance garage and the administration building that has the restaurant in it. Everything else up there is privately owned on a ground lease, paying the airport revenue for that.
So can you add a little more?
Oh, okay. If you'd like to turn to page 19, it has the revenues.
For the airport, there's 4 line items.
So can you add a little more in terms of that the APO only owns 2 different buildings within the property, and then everything else is it's owned by a private owner?
That's correct. The publicly owned buildings are the administration building and the maintenance garage, and everything else up there was developed by a private developer. They entered into an agreement to lease the land from the airport, then they went through the permitting process of North Andover, and then they actually built the buildings themselves with their money. So the airport didn't have to spend any money for that.
And how many buildings do we have that are privately owned?
They're based on tenants, not necessarily buildings, because one tenant could be a hangar association with 4 buildings and 6 units in each building, but I can count up 1, 2, 3. 28 leasehold tenants.
So 28 privately owned buildings, and they lease the land from the APR.
Yes, 28.
So, and how are the terms of those leases? Are they 20 years or they're
They vary.
longer?
Those that are 20 years are in place, and those that were greater than 20 years, non-aeronautical use, such as storage facilities or private businesses that are outside the fence line, they've come down to the council for approval for 45 years in the past. So they vary based upon the lease. By and large, I could say the rule of thumb is hangars are out 20 years, Anything required a substantial investment, such as a storage facility, if you're driving down Sutton Street, you can see that on your left, that was a request for a longer-term lease because they needed to amortize that into the secondary market.
Can you provide us with the list of tenants
Sure.
that are that have privately owned buildings, and also the terms of the actual lease? If they are 20 years, if they are 10 years, if they have 15 years left
Yep,
on the
we
lease.
actually have again, Ms. McSorley has a spreadsheet that has the tenant, the date it originated, and the date it's going to terminate, when the next CPI is due, so I can forward that file to you, that'd be easy.
Yeah, and also how much they paying for that land.
That's on there as well.
It's on there too.
Yep.
So yeah, we would like to get to know that. I mean, those are things that. Yep, sure. And so essentially, most of what is the percentage, the ratio that we have between other sources of revenue and that source of revenue for
10%.
renting? 10%.
10%.
So 90% come from renting those leases?
It does. That's why we're able to weather some economic downturns a lot better than my colleagues throughout the state. They rely upon landing fees and fuel flowage, and so when planes don't come in, you don't collect those fees. We have a long-term stable source of revenue, thanks to the council supporting the long-term leases of 45 years, as well as the 20-year leases that we do have.
Okay, and yeah, we would like to know that, and also other source of revenue. I know that before you mentioned that you guys are kind of selling, I think, fuel for the airplanes and stuff, the aircraft, and so far. And also, I know that one time, probably 5-6 years ago, when I visited the APR, you mentioned that there were some spaces available for the for the public that is mandated by the federal government to have. I don't quite remember the specific wording, but I mean, just a configuration of how when the people get there, how they park, and if they have the right to park, and so far.
Aircraft are you talking about, or?
Yeah,
vehicles? Okay. Yeah, those are the public ramps in that area I think you're talking about.
So, do we have public ramps available?
Yes, yes. That's the ramp space directly, I know you've been there, directly in front of the building. If you're in the restaurant looking out the windows, all that space is the transient, it's called
And
transient.
I know that you mentioned at one point the one that was on the very back side of that.
There is a north ramp that has parking spaces, but those are the ones we rent out. In that revenue stream, you saw a thing called parking. That's when we rent out the space for $75. The transient parking is when they're coming to the airport to drop off a passenger or have lunch. That's the public parking, and that's right out in the front of the main
Gotcha.
building.
So there is two type of parking,
Yes.
kind of long-term or monthly kind of
That's a
thing?
good way to describe it, correct.
Yeah.
One is long-term, and they have an arrangement with us, they have a tie-down agreement, and the other one is they're flying in, doing their business, and flying out.
Okay. All right, so let's get all that information to us
I'll have it tomorrow morning.
before the budget season finish, and then we can keep on discussing that for next session
No,
if we
no,
have to.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
That's easy.
Councilors, are there any other questions? Thank you so much, Director.
Thank you.
We'll be seeing you when this comes up to the City Council.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Pleasure. If anyone has any questions, please contact me. And as always, you're always invited up there to take a tour of the facility. Thank you.
Great. Up next, we have the City Clerk, and we have City Clerk LeBlanc here to speak on the item. Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the City Council.
Good evening.
Good evening. So, do you ask me questions, or would you like me to present the budget?
Yeah, so
So
what
that's a
we've been
very
doing is-
interesting concept, presenting the budget, because what's before you is not the budget that I requested. The way the budget process works is you are told to ask for what you got last year. And as you all know, I had nothing to do with that budget. And as you all know, since you've approved several supplemental requests, what I got last year was not adequate, right? Good little student, followed the rules, submitted a budget as I was told to, based upon what we got last year. But then I submitted 3 separate memos, one to go along with each organization code, the city clerk's office, the elections office, and the census vital records. So let's go one at a time. Let's start on page 51, and I will tell you, perhaps my approach will be what's not there that I want for you all to be aware of, because I think it should have been there, and you need to keep an eye on it to make sure at some point during the year it gets there. So starting off with 610, the first thing I want to call your attention to is on page 51, under advertising. Now, I don't know if this has come up in any of the other presentations, but none of the departments have advertising money. That money, as I understand it, is being moved to the mayor's budget. What that means for the city clerk's office, and more importantly, what that means for the city council, is that is your money to take care of all of your public hearings. We are not an office that is out there advertising whatever, doing messaging, doing that kind of thing. When we advertise, it is because of a statutory obligation. It is because of your statutory obligation. And it's our role to make that notice happen. So when the budget was first brought down, that's the thing that jumped out and hit me over the head. So what you'll see there under Object 5344 is we lost the $20,000. So you lost the $20,000 that you had last year, but $20,000 was not enough for you last year to cover your needs. So if you look, FY22 actual through April 6, and follow that down to advertising, 5344, it says through April 6th, 26,000 and some change was expended. Well, through today, a little over 30,000 has been expended, and I have with me a bill that I got today for your expenses in May, which popped that up to 35,000. Counselor?
Councilor Rodriguez?
What is that? So through
today, how much
today, we have spent in that account a little over $30,000, right? And if the bill that I printed out today and processed for payment is in the amount of 5,000 and something, right? So that takes you up to 35,000 plus. That does not cover June, and at a minimum, I'm estimating $4,000 to cover your public hearing notices in June, which gets you closer to $40,000, which is potentially your public hearing notice need. And, oh, what a surprise. In my memo, I asked for $40,000. So you need somewhere between $35,000 and $40,000. That is if you continue to be as prolific as you have been with regard to moving forward on these public hearings. If all of a sudden they slow down, then you don't need the money. Something else we have done with public hearings, and it needs to continue, regardless of who your next clerk is, you can't take shortcuts. If you have a loan authorization for a school, you must publish every single word. You can't publish a summary. It's called transparency. It's called the taxpayer's right to know, right? So we've been doing that. That costs more money. Councilor Rosario has brought in a resolution that will be coming before you, and I sincerely hope that you pursue it, that will appropriately charge the utilities for at least covering the costs of their public hearing notices, because right now that all comes out of this budget. So that's one really, really big thing. I also asked, I do see some things that I asked for that make me smile. I asked for a few $1,000s to do some employee training, right? That is in there. That's a good thing. When you look at the office and operating supplies for the city clerk's office 610, it is not enough. It a little bit more than what they had last year, but it's still, those two items together is, what, $5,500, right? That's not enough to cover their paper costs. The amount of paper that they go through in that office is crazy. They use your basic copier paper that every office uses. Now, which they weren't using before, so it wasn't an expense, they are now using the appropriate paper to produce the original birth certificate, the original death certificate, right? There are some documents that we have to keep forever. So we have to produce them on a certain level of bond paper with a low acidity rate, right? We have that in standard size, and for our cemetery deeds, we have to purchase it in legal size. Those papers are expensive. We also have to produce certified copies of our vital records using the state-mandated format in the forms that are numbered, which we had not been doing. So all of those things have gotten to us to a place where through today, our supply costs are somewhere between $10,000 and $11,000. So you're not giving them that, so you should expect the next city clerk or the assistant city clerk, somebody to come before you at some point and ask for additional money. The other major...
Madam
Yep.
Clerk, can you repeat that? So what was the amount that you think that should have been given for that item? You said 11,000, was it you said?
Sure. I had asked for a total, I had asked for $3,500 in office supplies, $5,420, and I had asked for $7,200 in operating supplies, $5,425. Now, the other component in the operating supplies that you should want to know about are proper storage containers. The city clerk's office is responsible for maintaining the vital records of the citizens of this city. They need to be stored properly. You don't store them in whatever supply box you got from Amazon, the day before, and just shove them all in and throw them up on a shelf, right? The condition of some of the older boxes, including those that are storing city council records, they need to be replaced. They were probably never of the proper quality, so we have started some reboxing, right? And we've done some of that. So some of that $10,000 that we spent this year was spent to purchase archival quality boxes so that we could begin to do some of those projects. But they need to continue with those things. Those are the kinds of things that your staff can do when they have downtime, right? It doesn't happen often, but it does happen, especially in the elections division where, it's busy and then it's not busy. So in terms of 610, I've called your attention to advertising. I've called your attention to the supplies. The other thing I'd like to call your attention to, on page 52, the assistant city clerk. You have two assistant city clerks, one upstairs, one downstairs, both very talented, very capable, very good at what they do. I had nothing to do with negotiating whatever salary you brought the assistant city clerk at upstairs on. I did have something to do with the salary that the assistant city clerk downstairs was brought on at. And if you look So 610 is on page 52. And if you go to 620, you'll see a difference. And the city clerk, assistant city clerk downstairs is paid $54,500. The city clerk upstairs should be paid the same thing. So that is a wrong that needs to be righted at some point, right? So those are the only things that I want to call your attention to in the 610 city clerk budget. I'm happy to answer questions on that budget, or if you want me to move to elections, you tell me how you want me to do it.
Let's pause there and give those councils. Do you have questions just on the office of the city clerk, the clerk's office, not the other two offices? Councilor De Rosario.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Madam Clerk, to actually be here and to drive again and be here. The city should give you gas money. It's too expensive. What was you asking? What were you asking in total for the budget for the city clerk's office?
So I was asking, you know what, I don't have a bottom line, but what I asked for, and I can send you all, tomorrow I'll send you my memos. I asked for $40,000 in Object Class 5344 to cover your public hearings. I asked for $8,000 in Object Class 5380 that was not funded. That was for reconfiguration of shelving. The president has seen it, Councilor Rodriguez has seen it. We have 3 vaults, and they are not ideally configured to get the maximum space possible. So I asked for $8,000 to have those reconfigured to accommodate the records that you all actually have, including records of the city council. I asked for $2,000 in employee training, which I received. I asked for $3,500 in office supplies, which I did not receive. And I asked for $7,200 in operating supplies. I did get an increase in books and subscriptions, which this is important for you, because this is where you pay MuniCode, which is now Civics Plus, who handles and manages our general ordinances, but it's also where you have a new vendor. We have engaged in a contract with General Code. The city, as it has not gone through a codification for the general ordinances, has also not gone through a codification for its zoning ordinances. So that is in the works and substantially on its way, but that vendor also costs money. We did get that increase, and that is a very good thing. Got $300 in in-state travel, which is good, so that the staff can go to conferences, and $400 for dues and membership, because when staff go to conferences, you pay less if they're members. So that's what I asked for, and we did better than they did last year, but I still think the office has some needs if, in fact, you are going to expect it to continue to move forward.
Madam Clerk, you mentioned at some time that it was $8,000 to configure the vaults. Where would that fit in 5480?
So I had that under 5380 other purchase services,
Okay, and that's not,
because it would probably be contract labor. The city just doesn't have the resources in-house. They probably could figure it out and do it, but they just don't have enough resources, so it would be contract labor.
follow-up for Councilor Rosario?
Thank you. And going back to the assistant clerk, which the salary, it's reduced according to this. Who should we ask? Ayanello can answer a question for?
So I'm not hearing the question. I'm hearing,
in
I'm
regards
getting,
to-
my hearing aids are picking up everything else. And that's where I was. One of my hearing aids is broke. I had to go have it looked at, so.
In regards on that assistant clerk, salary change.
Yep.
Who should we question? Did Ayanello can answer a question about that or no?
I mean, maybe. We can ask him and see if he has an answer. Director Ianello, I don't know if you have any insights into that.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry, I don't have an answer for that.
Might be a simple question
I
that,
don't know if it's are those union positions?
They're both union positions. They are both in the same union.
So-
The increase is not contractual. The increase is not contractual, right? And when you get your budget instructions, you are told you can put in contractual increases. It's just because Mr. Ianello was willing to have a conversation with me when the assistant downstairs was brought on as to what I thought he should be brought on as. We agreed, and he was brought on at the rate, the higher rate.
Okay.
And Damaris was just brought on before that, so there was no conversation.
So I don't have an answer as to why one's different than the other.
Counselor?
because I mean, I heard of raises, but I mean, raises of the salary, but I never hear of taking money away from a salary unless it's on a.
So I
It's on a
think,
contract.
I think in terms of the union contract, there is a range that you can pay certain positions.
Well, there's, I believe,
But they both should be on the same contract, right?
yeah, no, I believe one of the assistant city clerks was in the clerical union and then was promoted to assistant city clerk. And there's a requirement that the increase has to be at least 5% more than what they were previously making. And so probably she was moved to the first step or the second step in the new classification. And that's what I suspect happened.
Director Ianello, who ends up making those decisions?
It's usually when the person's hired. We, again, the collective bargaining agreement calls for what to do. And it says that an employee promoted from one classification to another has to make at least 5% more than what they were for that promotion. And I suspect that's what happened with the second city clerk. I'm not sure what happened, but there is depending on the union, there's one union in particular, you cannot pay them off a step. The union I think that this person belongs to, we just need the permission from the union to start them at a step different than the first step. And maybe this person started at a higher step. So to correct the situation, we should contact the union and find out if they can increase the pay of the other make them the same.
Thank you, Director Ianello. I guess I'm asking, like, which office is the office that would be dealing with doing all this work? Like, I'm grateful that you have some knowledge about what goes on.
Yeah, it's the
I'm
HR
wondering
department.
The
The HR
HR
department.
department,
We should-
okay.
would,
So
work with
Councilor
that.
Rosario, I think that sort of answers your question, that if we wanted further details on that, we would have to bring the personnel director to come speak to us. One second, Councilor Rodriguez.
Just to, thank you, Clerk, for being here. Just to follow up on Councilor Rosario's question, and can you give us a report as of what happened here? Can you request it through the Human Resource Department and be able to provide it to us for the next time that we met?
Can I give you a report on what?
Can you ask the Human Resource Department?
Oh, you know what,
Counselor,
absolutely.
we can ask it ourselves.
Yeah,
No, but I mean,
can
the
I,
thing is,
but,
it's like
but,
they're not here.
Mr. Chairman, it seems to be the wish of this committee that you would like to pursue that you are in agreement with me that it's a wrong that should be righted, and so I can pursue how to make that happen.
But I would like to make it an emotion.
Councilor Rosario?
Sorry. Can I make a motion on that to send correspondence to, no? Is that, oh, she's gonna do it? Okay.
Okay, no, and that's fine. I think that we still have, we have meetings on Monday and we also have a a TBD date if we need to extend conversations. I think it would be important for us to have a conversation with whoever, if the committee wants to proceed in these conversations, that we have a conversation with whoever is the decision-making, so we could basically speak about it. But
Sure. I mean, that definitely that's a route. That's the right way to go. I mean, just wanted to go back to that specific salary in regard to the assistant city clerk. Is the current salary for that position today is 54,889?
So those numbers may include a step increase, right? Because again, it's for the next fiscal year. Oh, yes, those are.
Fiscal year
Yep.
2022, we have budget 54,889. That was for fiscal year 2022 on that on the 1069 city clerk, assistant city clerk.
So I do not believe she was paid at that rate. Because when I look at reports that I get from one of the offices, they are being paid at a different rate.
Yeah, but it was budget 54,889.
Yep.
All right. So that's
Right.
that's going to be part of the
Again, I think there was so much movement of people, you know, from senior clerk to assistant clerk to city clerk, back to,
Gotcha.
yeah.
Which she should be getting a stipend instead. For all the work she did while we didn't have a clerk. All right, let's go back to the to what you mentioned, section 5344, which is basically the advertising. So we have a contractual obligation to advertise public hearings and many other things that we need
Right.
from that office.
Right.
That office is separate from the budgets from the mayor's office, and is separate based on our city charter, separate from any other offices. It's under the city council. Or at least the clerk is under city council. Did they explain to you how the advertising was going to be done under the new structure, everything going to the mayor's office? Is that something that they explained to you? Can you add on that if they say something to you?
So there has not been any detail provided to this date. And again, to your point, Counselor, if I had been asked, I would have made strong arguments, I believe, as to why the city clerk's office is so unique with regard to its advertising budget. And why maybe even if everybody else was being moved over, we shouldn't be moved over. I mean, at the end of the day, what's important is that there always be money where it needs to be to cover your public hearings. It also is important that the process that is set up does not add even 10 minutes to getting a public hearing noticed. Right now, we jump through so many hoops the day after a city council meeting. We take what you've ordered for a public hearing, we get it up to the city attorney's office, we have conversations with them. What can they work on? What's ready to go? They have to stop everything that they're doing to try to get something to us so that we can turn it around, meet the deadlines of the Eagle Tribune, again, based upon a limited number of publishing days and limited staffing. So if we're delaying that process in any way, you're never going to see something, you know, at the next city council meeting. Right now, you often see things a month out, right? 2 full council meeting cycles. And if we're delaying it in any other way, it's going to be longer.
So, so what you're telling me right now is that this is the first time that you have a conversation about that section of your budget.
So again, I put in for $40,000. When the budget was brought to the city clerk's office to put on the agenda to present to the full council at their last meeting, I couldn't resist but to take a little peek at 6:10 and see how we did. And quite honestly, after I saw that, it made no sense to me. I called the comptroller. I said, what's going on here? She explained that the money's there, but it's just being moved someplace else. I did ask a question at the last mayor's meeting, right? Generally every Monday, but there was no detail around how it would work.
I mean, just thinking about that situation as of how the advertising for any department goes through the mayor's office, it's so sketchy. Because if you think about it, if the mayor say no, don't publish that, it won't go out. So that means that the mayor gonna have control of transparency to any department, and that's not right.
So Councilor Willett, what I will say in response to that is that the chief of staff was at that meeting, and this chief of staff, even though details around process weren't worked out, the chief of staff said what you do is statutory, right? So, I mean, they know that.
Councilor Rodriguez?
Yes, I still have, I'm still processing, so give me 1 minute. Oh, my goodness. So let's go back to the other thing that I wanted to ask, and then I'll probably go back to section 5344. So in terms of the printing and mailing, you got a level funded budget on there of $1,000. Is that what you request, knowing the fact that that might increase in the future?
In what object class?
5343.
5343. We didn't, but the reality is, we don't usually do, right now when we do mailing, we take the mail to the central mail station upstairs, and we process our mail there, as most departments do. So that's what's there is sufficient.
Okay. And when it comes to the office supplies, you say that you asked for 3,500, and then on the operating supplies, you asked for 7,500, and 7,200, and you didn't get that either.
We didn't get what I asked for, but we did get an increase in operating supplies,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Not what I asked for, but we got something. So the other thing that I failed to mention, which is important relative to this account, is I did, after some urging from Councilor Rodriguez, because the budget had already gone in, I submitted a supplemental memo asking for $10,500 in overtime money for this account, so that we never get into a situation again where we're backlogged, where it's taking way too long to answer requests, where we can't open the doors when we want to on time because we've got to focus and get things done, right? The work comes in waves. I don't know if anybody heard, but the State Vital Records Office had a flood, right? They had a flood several months back. You wouldn't even think about the implications that that has, especially on a community with a birthing hospital like Lawrence. They're coming to us for records, right? So the workload just has increased. This overtime would do a few things. If you got yourself into a situation where you weren't meeting your standards, and oh, by the way, we have standards now, right? We are processing all requests for vital records, generally within 1 day, 1 business day, but with very rare exception, within 2 business days.
When you say just for the people that are up there that doesn't know what's the full spectrum of the word vital record means, can you
Sure.
detail a little bit
Vital
more?
records are the records that every community has to keep at the local level that documents their citizenry, their birth, their death, their marriage, if they have a burial plot at a city cemetery, their burial deed, the permanent records of the city of Lawrence, right? So we are processing those requests in a timely manner. We don't have backlogs, but you never know when you're going to get the influx. So having the ability to work some overtime is a good thing. The other situation that you have upstairs, which is unique to the clerk's office. Yep, yep,
Did the 10,500 for the overtime was,
that's what I asked for.
and it was denied.
But it's not in my budget,
It's not on the budget.
right? And so the other situation that addresses, everybody in the clerk's office is a union employee except the city clerk. Everybody of the union employees, the assistant city clerk, does not get overtime. But the 3 senior clerks, and going forward, hopefully, to be 2 senior clerks and 1 principal accounts clerk, they get overtime. It is not uncommon for 1, 2, 3 people to arrive at the city clerk's office between 4:20 and 4:30. And we're not big on closing the door in their face when they're walking in. So when they come in, again, it's not like they're dropping off a tax bill or they're handing you something. They're looking for something. And then it takes between 10 to 20 minutes, and if the record is downstairs, longer to service it. According to the union contract, the employee who is staying should be getting overtime. So what I've been trying to do as your city clerk, even for a short time, is to correct situations that I believe weren't the way that they should be. And one of them is following the union contract, right? And this is one aspect of that.
Councilors, any, Councilor Levy?
Thank you. Last year, you came in front of us because you were short in different things, you know? That is going to happen the same this year?
So it's not going to happen to the same extent, right? And so to your point, when I submitted the budget, again, I followed the rules, but then my memos addressed the increases that I had to come before you and ask for, right? So hopefully to avoid that situation. And again, we got some of the increases, not all. One of the major things we asked you for was more advertising money, right? So as long as there's enough money somewhere else, certainly the city clerk's office isn't going to be coming forward and asking you for more money. I do think they're going to come forward and ask you for more money in supplies, right? Especially if we are going to keep moving forward on reboxing projects and taking care of some things that need to be taken care of. So I think they're going to come forward and ask for more money in supplies for sure. But other than that, I'm not sure.
So, this is just only for the city clerk office right now.
Yeah.
How is going to be, or do you know how is going to be the process from your office to the mayor office to do the advertisement?
We don't know the process, Counselor.
So that can delay right now any things or any advertisement that we could
You know
have.
what?
Like, if we have something right now, if you don't know the process, are you gonna send it to somebody else who's gonna be dealing with this? So if your office sends something to be advertised, any office send it to do on another advertising, so it will be taken by priority, or I really,
Counselor, in the best-case scenario is that the city clerk's office be allowed to function as a city clerk's office, publish your public hearing notices as soon as we can after you order them, and the account is simply set up so that the bill goes to a different department, and they pay the bill. But there's no involvement at all in reviewing, approving, whatever. There's no negotiating with the Eagle Tribune. If they come back and tell you that your announcement is $450, it's $450, right? And any department who would be managing this, they're not going to rewrite a public hearing notice that has come from the city attorney's office and the city clerk's office. So hopefully for the city clerk's office, all it would mean, best-case scenario, is that the bill goes to a different office.
so practically, the city clerk office should continue doing their operation on the way that they've been doing right now for advertising, at least. Thank you.
Councilors, before I ask any questions, I know Council President had some questions or comments. Council President, if you can come up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, appreciate it, and thank you, Clerk, for your time this evening. I do appreciate that as well. Not to harp on something, but I've known, after looking at the budget, some of the items that were discussed just now. So two things. The quick and easy one is we need to make sure that that salary, I think you're all kind of getting to that, are equal for what the clerk says. The upstairs and the downstairs assistant clerk should be equal. That should just happen, right? Whatever needs to be done, that's what should happen. The second thing is, and I just want to have the opportunity to say this now because I won't when I'm sitting where you are, Mr. Chairman, which is we need to get that money back, I think, from the mayor's office down to the city clerk's office. The most fundamental reason why, and I'm just going to say it to echo my words on this, and I'm going to repeat your sentiment, time matters in that office. Any delay of time jeopardizes the ability to get the work done. To the clerk's amazing credit, she was able to get to this office, the clerk's office, and get through our public hearings morass. Remember how awful that was? Where we had no clue where things were falling between the cracks, we didn't know what was happening, something was in this department or that department, or something was there, or this is in that committee, and it was tabled. It was a nightmare. Got that fixed. No, to a large part to the city clerk, an amazingly large part to the city clerk. Now, what we don't want to do is give any excuses for slippage. And if we start allowing delays, it's going to impact all of us. Because you're going to be saying, how come I ordered a public hearing last week and voted for it. Where is that, Council President? I'm like, hamina, because I'm not going to have a good answer. So anyway, I just want to stress on that. Those two quick items. There's many, many more things to develop, but those two things I really want to harp on this evening. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Council President. So I don't have any questions, but I am looking. I would like to see if I can get a motion to send correspondence to the mayor's office that we are interested. The Budget Committee is interested in seeing either an increase or an explanation to item 5344, an increase of 40,000.
5420, I'm sorry, not an increase of 40,000. For item 5344 to be 40,000. Item 5420 to be 3,500, 5425, 7,200, and for 5110, for there to be an additional 4,759, and for correspondence to be sent to the mayor's office, asking for that, or a response as to why they're choosing not to do that. Is there a motion to send that?
Second.
I make the motion.
Councilor Levy makes the motion. Is there a second?
I second it.
Seconded by Councilor Rodriguez. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oh, there's discussion. Go ahead, Councilor.
Discussion on the motion. I would like to friendly ask for a friendly amendment to also add the 10,500 on the overtime for the city clerk's office.
Is there a code?
No, no, it's not.
Okay. So adding 10,000, Councilor Levy, are you,
Yes.
yes? And I think there was something about other purchases as well.
5380.
Councilor Levy, do you take that as a friendly amendment?
Yeah, I would like to put that as a friendly amendment. So 5380, 8,000.
Okay, so just to read again, Maria, so it would be sending correspondence regarding the items where 5344, the total would be 40,000, 5420, the total will be 3,500, 5425, total will be 7,200, 5110, it's adding 4,759 to that. I couldn't do the math that quickly. 5380, 8,000, and then adding 10,500 to overtime.
Which is going to be new, right?
Any other discussion? So all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Thank you. So I won't say much because I think that the other counselors have spoken enough on it. In particular, while I understand why the mayor's office might want to handle all the advertisement for the city, I think that the city clerk's office falls under the city council, and the duties are very different from what the other departments do. So I hope that through conversation we'll be able to rectify that and bring this to a positive conclusion. That being said, Madam Clerk, if you can move us on to elections.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, of course. So we did well on some fronts in elections, Organization Code 010620. We are good with salaries and wages permanent, and you notice a significant increase up from 76.6 to 106,586, which is salaries and wages temporary. That's where the poll workers, your inspectors, your clerks, your wardens, and your training, that's where that is paid for. And what is approved is what I asked for. So there's the good news. There's still a situation that you need to be aware of. This budget was submitted prior to Councilor Levy, Councilor Rodriguez, really doing all of the work around the poll worker pay increase, right? And the order that, I don't think this is a secret, the council order that Councilor Levy intends to move forward on June 7th, right? And that is to increase poll worker compensation even more than what I asked for. So when I asked for this budget, I took poll workers up to $15, inspectors, clerks up to $16, and wardens up to $18. The order that came out of the Ordinances and Rules Committee, the Ordinances and Intergovernmental Relations Committee, has the following rates set. Inspectors, $18 an hour, right? It's not stated like that. It's stated the way Councilor Rodriguez requested, minimum hourly wage plus 20%. Clerks, minimum hourly wage plus 25, wardens, minimum hourly wage plus 30. What that equates to is 18 an hour for inspectors, $18.75 for clerks, and $19.50. So, assuming that you are fully staffed for the state primary and fully staffed for the state general election, if in fact the rates that the council proposes in the council order that is sent to the mayor, if that's what the mayor signs, if he approves that order and doesn't veto it, then there's a gap of probably $20,000 to $24,000 in that salaries temporary. Now, it may not be an issue because at least today, according to the assistant city clerk downstairs, there was uncertainty around whether or not there was going to be early voting for the primary, right? And so that would save a chunk of money. It's not a lot of money. There's enough there for the office to move forward. The assistant city clerk has his eye on it, and if more money is needed to cover the November election, they will be in here asking for it. But the number you see is what I asked for, but it was based on a significant increase, but still lesser than what the council is going to put forward. So that's that. Again, everything in the top part looks very good. Purchase of services. This is one of those areas you see $15,000 repairs and maintenance under object class 5240. We don't spend that kind of money in repairs and maintenance. Where that money is actually spent is in data processing, 5306, the work, the manipulation that the company that we've been doing business with, LHS, does. So I made an attempt to get a new object that 5306, which more properly reflected how we use the money. I guess at the end of the day, it just matters that the money's there and it's there. But if you looked at that and said, okay, clerk, what do you spend $15,000 repairing and maintaining? I guess data manipulation could be considered maintenance. But personally, I think there's a better object class, and at some point, I think it should be changed. The big item here is printing and mailing. If you look at 5343, what's been approved is $25,000, and what did I ask for? 5343, I asked for $40,000, right? And if you look at through April 6th, we have spent $35,712. Through today, we have spent $46,712, right? Now, that number is a little bit misleading in that the postage has been put, a significant amount of postage was put on our postage machine, which is in the elections office. That's a change we made this past year. Prior to that, if they had to process mail, they went upstairs. It wasn't efficient and it wasn't fair. If they got into a cycle where all of a sudden you're mailing out early voting, absentees, you're mailing everything out, they turn around and they look at the machine upstairs and it's got no money on it, right? And it's a process to add postage. So now we have our own postage machine and we put our own postage. So again, we've got some postage on that machine, which we needed to put because there are going to be potentially, at least in District E, some notices that need to go out around a change in polling location, right? And those need to happen sooner rather than later, after consultation with the district counselor, after consultation with the Board of Registrars, and after bringing a recommendation to the city council and the city council making a determination. But with re-precincting, we ended up with an E1 and an EA, and they need to be moved, right? So they have to go somewhere else. So we needed that money. But the bottom line is $25,000 is not enough in printing and mailing. It simply is not. So they will be back to you. I have told the assistant, you know, you just have to keep an eye on it. And don't wait until it's down to 2,000 or 3,000 before you try to get on the council agenda, right? Get in, when you see your money's at half, get on the agenda. So there's that. The place where we did very, very well is other purchased services, 5380. You see a big bump. It's not what we actually spent, right, this year.
What code was that again?
What's that?
What code was that again?
That is in 5380. And we're getting $20,400. So what are other purchase services? We pay somebody on a contract to come in and test our voting machines. That's other purchased services. We pay somebody, that same person also puts all the data on the spreadsheets for us at the end of the night. Last year, we had Richard Reyes working as a contractor. But the other reason that money is important, we don't need an extra person in elections all year long. You don't need them, right? It's cyclical. But when you get into election season, you generally need another person. With the timing of bringing on a temporary employee in the city, you just can't turn it around that quickly. So you have to go to a temp agency, which we did last year. Temp agency is going to cost you $30 an hour, right? So that money will allow you, or will allow the assistant city clerk, the new clerk, to bring on some additional help during that period. I mean, the other thing I want to remind the members of this committee is that the city received a tremendous benefit last year from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, the Elections Division, Michelle Tassinari and her staff, who paid for 3 different town clerks to come and spend a significant amount of time with us. That was paid out of the state budget, right? We're not going to get that benefit during a state election because those individuals have their own election. But during our municipal election, when some things were in flux, we reached out, we asked for help, we made them our partners, and they helped us. And they foot the bill. Okay, so I guess, again, the supply costs, $3,000 in office supplies, $2,000 in operating supplies. You need supplies to run elections. You need binders, you need tape, you need a lot of things. We didn't necessarily get what we asked for, but good news is you'll see on a matter coming on the next council agenda that the CAFO is looking for a transfer of funds to cover some capital projects. And one of the things that I was looking for some money for in supplies or operating supplies that they're going to fund in that way are stanchions. You remember going to the movies and seeing the stands and the velvet rope between them, right? They used to be big and bulky, but they sort of guided you to where you needed to go. They don't look like that anymore. They're much sleeker. They're, don't take up a ton of space. And then they have the stretch, the pull in between. And you can set them up and configure however you want. The elections division needs those, right? So that's going to be funded through another mechanism, which is a good thing. That will allow them, especially at locations where there are multiple precincts, to guide people to the right place. It will allow them to properly partition off the observer section, so observers aren't going over into areas where they're not. So, I mean, all in all, I think in terms of the elections division, we fared pretty well. The biggest concern I have is with printing and mailing. They will be coming back to you for more.
Councilors, are there any questions? Councilor Levy.
Thank you. So practically in item 5343, so you say that as of today, we have been spending more than 46,000. So,
Right. If you were to look in Munis today, the number that you would see is 46,712. But that includes $11,000 that we put on a postage machine that hasn't yet been spent. It's there so we can begin to get ready and be ready to send out notifications to people. So, I mean, that's what we will be spending.
so practically it's a recommendation, the same amount that we spent or that we put in last year, the 25,000. So if, looking at what you're saying right now, we should be having another increase on at least 25 more thousand? I'm sorry, then
I asked for 40,000.
the 40,000.
I asked for 40,000, I got 20. I remember when I came for my interview, Councilor Payano said, "Don't be shy about asking for what you need." So that has not been a problem for me.
I know.
Follow-up, Councilor Levy?
No, thank you.
Councilors, any other questions? Seeing none, if we can move to vital records, or vital stats.
So here we are good. We're good. We got the additional, if you see, printing and mailing in FY '22, and now we're getting 35,000. This is where your city census is. And again, it's not something, it is what it is. There are X numbers of households in the city that need an initial census notification. It costs a certain amount of money. If they actually return it, each piece costs a certain amount of money. I think through today, we probably have somewhere in the range of 12,000 responses out of just under 27,000 sent. So what that means is within the next few weeks, everybody who didn't respond is going to get a little confirmation card. And that costs money. And hopefully the majority will return it, and that costs money on the return. So we got what we needed here, and they probably shouldn't be asking for more unless postal rates go through the roof.
Thank you. Councilors, any questions? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, thank you so much for coming through. I think, very appreciated.
If I might, since I have your attention, bring a few other needs, significant needs, which cost money, to your attention. They are not part of the city clerk's budget. One of them is, I believe the city has an immediate need for software to manage its public records requests, right? We manage public records requests on a calendar year. So far this calendar year, I think we have around 260 public records requests. We will exceed 500 by the end of the year. These are being managed through a manual system. It is very difficult, very challenging. Communities of this size are using software, whether it's Just FOIA and Next Request. There's a bunch of them out there. But that's not something that would come out of the city clerk's budget. That's a bigger conversation that myself and the city attorney were attempting to have. And I would hope that somebody would continue to try to move that forward. But that software and that purchase needs to come out of the IT department. The other most significant need that your city clerk's office has is for space, right? Again, the president, Councilor Rodriguez, they've come in, they've looked at the vaults. Our vaults, our records are blocked. We can't access them. We have all of the elections equipment everywhere. The only elections equipment that we need to keep in the vault are the actual image cast machines, that small machine. Everything else that we have can be stored off-site in a safe, secure location. So that is an immediate need that your city clerk's office has. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, councilors, for your indulgence.
Thank you. So I do have a question, Madam Clerk. Do you happen to have a cost for that software?
I would say in the ballpark of at least 15,000. Vendors price it differently. I got a couple of vendors to give me numbers. One said 12,000, one said 15, and then some of the bigger ones now are saying it depends upon the number of people in your community. So I think there's room to negotiate with them. I think if you've, got 15,000, you can probably get something off the ground.
And Madam Clerk, if you can go into, a little bit more details as to why it would be important to handle these types of requests through a software instead of having like an Excel spreadsheet or whatever
Sure.
it is that you guys use.
Right now, we are meeting sort of the minimum requirements for processing public records requests. A public records request, so let me backtrack. We've made a significant improvement. Public records requests were coming in directly to departments. They were coming in directly to the police station. They were coming in online through the portal to request copies of videos. And then whoever is on the receiving end of that, once a request is made, there's 10 business days to get an initial response. Not necessarily a complete response, but an initial response. So when they're coming in all over the place, somebody's on vacation, by the time they get to the city clerk's office, it might already be 2, 3, 4 days old, right? Now we have set up an email, publicrecordsrequests@cityoflawrence.com. Everything goes there. So the first person to put eyes on that request is myself or the assistant city clerk. We assign it a number. We go in, we pull up the form, we put in the number, we type it all up, then we send it off to the requester to let them know we've received it. We tell them which department it has been sent to, and then we send it to the department. The department responds directly. Sometimes we're copied, sometimes we're not. But we don't have a mechanism to track. How are we doing on our 10-day response time? Generally, we know, just because it's so busy with other things, generally we know there's an issue when somebody will come back, because I always say, if you don't hear from us, come back to me, right? And they say, you know what, it's been 10 days. Can you get me an update? So with so many hands involved, large numbers for the police station, large numbers for the school department, large numbers for inspectional services, it's just hard to keep track of where they are. In some cases, they ask for everything because they can, right? And the request will involve 3, 4, 5 departments, right? And so then you're trying to manage, okay, well, 3 of them responded, but 2 of them didn't. If you have software that's specifically designed for this, it tracks that. You get reports, you get alerts. You know what? 3 of 5 departments have responded. You've got 2 outstanding. So it's just, I think it would be helpful.
Thank you. I have a question for Director Ianello. Director, since you know, you're heading up the well, not necessarily heading up the IT department, but the IT department is you know within your office. Is this something that the IT department is looking into?
Not the IT department, it would be the clerk and the city attorney would have to recommend some software, and then contact the IT department to make sure it's compatible with the equipment, and they can certainly assist, but they wouldn't, they aren't experts in record management, they are, so we need their cooperation. Yep.
All right, thank you. Councilors, any other questions? Councilor Rodriguez.
Just to follow up, Director Ianello, on that. Well, essentially, what the clerk was referring to is that they obviously going to start a conversation on that, but the money portion of it should come from the IT. Is the money part of that discussion, that's something that you guys might look into it, to pay for it?
In general, the IT department pays for almost all the software in the city, there's very few exceptions, but that's what we would prefer, that the software be purchased by the IT department. That way we know the IT department was involved in the purchase, so that when the program doesn't work, the IT department can help fix it. But if people buy programs that weren't purchased through the IT department really can't help them. So that's the logic behind centralizing it all in the IT department, make sure it's compatible.
Just to
Madam
stay there,
Clerk.
so
So, councilors, just so that you have the full picture, myself and the assistant city clerk, and we did a demo with one company, had some conversations with the city attorney, had some conversations with the primary point of contact at the police station. We set up a demo with another company who's one of the big players in this area. I participated, the city attorney participated, the police department participated. I believe Odanis from the school department participated for a while. We invited the IT person who was not able to do it, and inspectional services, but we did have that, and it was taped. So that demo is available whenever the IT director would like to look at it. He really does need to be part of the process, right? Because he's going to be supporting it.
just a follow-up on that.
Madam Clerk, I think the Councilor Rodriguez has a follow-up. I also have a follow-up as well.
Yes. Do you mind starting up the conversation with the IT again, now that we have talked to Mark Ianello about this?
Absolutely. Yep.
And follow up with him, follow up with the city attorney to be in concurrence with the requirements that it will fulfill the needs of that situation.
Absolutely. Again, there's a procurement involved here, so we need to be careful, right? We're just asking for demos. We're not making procurement decisions, but
Yeah, no,
absolutely.
definitely. I mean, we the purchase agents need to be involved, but I mean, please follow up with them to see if we can solve the problem.
So just an overall question. Is this something that the city would do an RFP for? Is something that the city, like through the demos, this working group is going to say, oh, let's use this company?
So, again, conversations with myself, the city attorney, Officer Scanlon over at the police department, right, that has to handle, a huge bulk of this. We decided we wanted to look at a few different vendors. We ended up seeing one, and again, Damaris and I saw a second. So my sense is that we would look at a number of vendors, right? We would look at Next Request, we would look at Just FOIA, we would look at, again, 3 or 4 vendors. And I think it's really important for the IT person to be part of those demos and conversations, and then we have discussions, and it becomes a procurement, right? Who can do the job? If they all can do the job, they can all bid on the job. If we definitely have a preferred because they do certain things that the others don't, I mean, again, but it's a procurement situation.
Director
If I
Ianniello?
might just add on the procurement, with software, it generally isn't a procurement problem because there's under state contract, we can purchase almost all software. So it's not it'll be a quick procurement with software. It's not we don't have to go out to bid or do that. We just have to do the research ourselves, which program do you like, and more than likely, I would bet, we'll be able to buy it on state contract.
Thank you, Director Ianniello. I think it's also important for the Director of IT to be part of these conversations, because I think that, especially dealing with software, sometimes folks that understand more of like the technical pieces might be able to provide some more information. My suggestion, having had to do something similar for my job, where there were various stakeholders that needed to be part of the conversation, and not all of them could be there at the same time. If there's a list of like important questions that could just be asked, so even if you're not in the room and somebody else is, and you're able to go back to the recording or see the responses of those questions, they might allow all of you to talk to more vendors, because I'm sure that time is probably time and capacity is probably one of the things that has stopped, the working group for being able to talk to more vendors. So, yeah, so this sounds important, and I hope that in the next couple of months we might be able to, at least if the working group is able to say, this is the software, and then we could ensure that in the following months the software is procured. I think that would be a huge step. But again, seeing that there's no other questions, I want to thank you, Madam Clerk, for coming here and for giving us this amazing presentation. I think I've taken more notes today than in the last 2 days, so thank you very much. Moving next, we'll have City Attorney's Office. Hello, Attorney Houghton. If you can just state your name and title for the record.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the council. Attorney Timothy Houghton, H-O-U-T-E-N. I'm the first assistant city attorney here in Lawrence. And as you can see, this is going to be probably one of the easier ones, I hope. Overall, the budget is going down. We are removing the third assistant. As you all probably know, right now we're busy trying to hire two other, first a main city attorney and a second assistant attorney. So it's very doubtful we would ever get to a third this year anyway, so removing from the budget really doesn't seem to be, it does seem to be appropriate at this time. Also, we are removing $100,000 from judgments. Now, obviously, you understand that should something come up, we would come back, and if it was a judgment.
It's 200,000.
200,000, I'm sorry, I misspoke. But we've been looking at post-COVID. Our cases now are getting to what we call a pre-trial stage, and the way things are backed up, any trials which would result in a judgment probably are 6 months to a year away. So we feel comfortable at this time, but obviously we could come back should something come up. So those are the two cuts. Everything else, you see that any of the increases were based on contract. They are not granted otherwise. And I'm here to answer any questions you might have about the office or what's going on.
Councilors, are there any questions? Thank you so much, Attorney. Thank you for all your work, and thank you for being here and presenting. You were right. This was an easy one.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
Yep.
See you later.
We now move on to community development. Well, Ms. Fink, if you could state your name and title for the record.
Sure. Good evening, councilors. My name is Susan Fink. I am the Manager of Financial and Administrative Services in the Community Development Department. And I apologize in advance. I have a bit of a cold, so please excuse my coughing. So we're on page 56 in the budget book. And as you'll see, our main increase in our budget is in the salary and wages area. The administration has requested that we add a grant manager position into the department. This person will be responsible for researching and applying for various grant opportunities, and that would be for any of the city departments. It wouldn't be just specifically for community development. We also have the community health specialist. That position is currently vacant, but it is paid $35,000 out of the general funds. We have $30,000 for the homelessness initiatives coordinator. That is just a partial payment of that person's salary. They are currently paid $57,500. The rest of the funds come from the Mayor's Health Task Force, the Lawrence General Hospital Determination of Need Funds, and other grant funds that we have. And then we've got a portion of the Community Development Director and my salary for any work that we do that's not grant eligible. Under purchase of services, we have $9,150 for a portion of the rent for the space that we occupy. It's about 17% of the annual cost of the lease. We've got $1,000 for the custodial service contract, and again, that's about a 16% share. Under supplies, we have $823 for copy paper, restroom supplies, break room supplies, because our office houses several departments, planning, business and economic development, as well as community development. And just under travel, $100 for in-state travel costs to non-grant related meetings, especially those related to homelessness. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Yes, thank you. So, community health,
Yes.
their salary is only 35,000, or is there?
It's a range. It's 35 to 45.
Okay. Where does the other 10,000 or 5 to 10,000 come from?
So if that position were to be filled, the other salary would come from grant funds.
Okay. So currently that position isn't filled.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you, Councilors. Any questions? Councilor Rodriguez?
Yeah, I was just thinking about something else when you say your title. Can you repeat that? Can you repeat your title?
I'm the manager of financial and administrative services.
So the question that I have, and essentially different salaries come from different grants and stuff like that, and they're partially paid by the city and then partially come from different grants based on grants that we get and stuff like that. And I always confuse about, everybody from that office. Like, I have asked before, but things have changed. Do you mind sending us a list of people working in the office salary that corresponds to every position?
Certainly, I'd be happy to get that for you.
Thank you so much.
Is there a follow-up, Councilor? Councilor Rodriguez? Councilors, any other questions? Councilor Levy?
Thank you. So I can see in here, what is the non-HUD grant eligible salary?
So that's a portion of the community development director and my salary for any work we do that's not eligible under either the CDBG or home grants.
So because your salary comes directly from those grants?
Correct, yes.
Okay.
So if I do any work that's, generally city-related, I can't charge the HUD grants for that time.
So what is your title again right now?
I'm the manager of financial and administrative services.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I always call you director, and
I'm not.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
That's okay.
No, you said that the last meeting after like the 50th time I said director. You're like, I'm not a director anymore, or you're not director. You're manager. How many people are currently working within the community development department?
Just in community development, there are, including the Manistee Task Force, there are 12 employees.
12 employees. Okay. How many people, because I know that they're, like in any department, sometimes you have funding for someone and you haven't hired them yet or whatever it might be. How many people could be employed within community development?
We currently have 4 vacancies.
4 vacancies. Okay. Councilors, any other questions? Seeing none, thank you so much for being here with us tonight. Hope you have a good evening.
Thank you.
We have next economic development.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Dan McCarthy. I'm the acting planning director, and I'm here to answer any questions on the economic development budget.
Can you, Dan, can you state your title again?
Excuse me?
Can you state your title again?
What's that?
Can
My
you
title?
state your title again?
Yes, I'm the acting planning director.
So can you just lead us, let's start, we can start either in planning or we can start, I think we should start economic development because that might be quicker.
Yes, economic development is currently being level funded.
Page 65?
Yes, correct. Page 65. It's the same amount for personal services, purchase services, supplies, and other charge. As far as salaries and wages, it has 3 1/3 employees covered under that. 2 are currently, positions are filled. Each of the departments who operates in our office pays 1/3 of the salary of this receptionist. So that's where the third comes from. We have an economic development project officer, an administrative assistant, and then there's a director of business and economic development, which position is currently vacant. That's why I'm here. The other 2 positions are full. It's being, the request is for it to be level funded. No changes.
Which one is vacant again?
The
Economic
director's,
development?
the director's position.
Which one is the director's position?
It's,
I'm guessing.
I
it's
think
business and
I think the
economic
word
development?
director got cut off because the title's so long.
Yeah.
It starts off, business and economic development, and I think the word director got cut off because of the length of the title.
Yes, so all the other positions listed here, the Economic Development Project Officer, the Administrative Assistant, obviously the receptionist, are all staffed.
Yes, they are.
Okay. Are there any positions that might be covered through grants that are currently, that you have someone working within that department or could be working in that department?
Currently, no. The way the department works, it usually works with, there's large-scale economic project development, and then there's small business development. And for the last 3 years, they've been concentrating mainly on small business because of, obviously because of the Columbia gas and then the COVID situation. The Economic Development Department's been primarily in charge with working on helping the businesses in the city deal with those 2 events. Of course, that's changing now, and we've started to turn them over to the more classic project, which would include overseeing development grants, projects such as brownfields, land development, things of that nature. So we have a new young associate working with us in the project, and I've been training him on how to do those decisions. We could always use more staffing. I think I know the new administration has ideas on that, about dealing with both large-scale economic development and dealing with the businesses in the city. I think that's the goal, is to be able to assist both at the same time and continuously. And
Thank you. Councilors, any other questions? Seeing none, if we can move to Planning Department.
Yep. The planning department is also going to be level funded, same as last year. There is a difference of $3,000 coming out of the budget. That will be for advertisement. The bulk of the budget is for personal services. That includes 4 1/3 positions. The positions are the planning director, the land use planner, the asset officer, and the administrative assistant to the boards. And then again, we also pay 1/3 to the receptionist. We currently have, I'm the acting land use planner as well as the acting director. I am actually the land use planner as well as the acting, and we have a new administrative assistant to the boards. The asset officer position is currently vacant. On the purchase of services, we have, last year we were at 80,000, this year we're gonna be at 77,000. The change in that is we are losing the advertisement, which is gonna be going to the mayor's office for handling. Again, the major purchase requirements for that were the rental of equipment space. That's our share of the rent for the office that we are in, and $49,000, which goes to departmental plans. This year, we spent most of that money doing appraisals for construction projects that the city is required to pay for. So that's where most of that money went for the last fiscal year. And we have 2 more large-scale projects, the Amesbury and the Amesbury Street two-way change and the rail trail, which are going to require the same services. So that's probably where the bulk of that money will go to.
Great, thank you. Councilors, any questions? Well, the acting director, thank you so much for coming here tonight. It seems like there are no other questions.
That's to be here.
So I hope you have a good night.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
We move next to Lawrence Fire Department. Chief?
Can I just make a suggestion, while Dan's here, boards and commissions, because I think you have boards and commissions on tomorrow night. If we could just take care of him tonight, that would be a lot easier for him.
Councilors, is that okay? All right, so seeing that there's no protest to that, we'll move on to boards and commission. If you could, Dan, let us know what page number.
Yep, sure. The boards and commissions are broken down into 2. The first one is
What page number?
Oh, it's page 62. So boards and commissions on page 62. The expenses for that last year were $5,000, and it's going to be recommended at $5,500. It's going to be recommended at $1,250 this year. Obviously, the major loss was the advertising fees for the different boards, which would include the planning board and the historic commissions. Conservation handles their own advertisement, and zoning handles their own advertisement. There's also $500 towards dues and membership that pays for the city's board members' membership dues into various local groups and affiliations, like MAACC and the AICP, which is for the planners.
Councilors, any other questions? None?
Yes.
Oh, Councilor Rodriguez.
Board on the next page.
Yep. So the zoning board is on page 63. Zoning board is handled
Councilor Rodriguez?
Yep.
Yes, on page 62.
62.
Can you please go, once you go back to your office, can you please look into the statutes as of the requirement of the planning board to have different publications? If that's part of the statutes or that's something that can be handled by the mayor's office. Can you please look into it and send us whatever the law says around that?
Yes, I can do that.
So just to follow up, usually for that type of advertisement, when we're dealing with things that, dealing with statute, does your office do that or the city clerk's office do that?
We do that. It's handled by our office. We, for every case that the board handles, We advertise in the paper twice before the meeting, and so it's primarily the planning board, the historic for a lesser amount. Conservation handles their own advertisement.
Is the 42,050, is that, I'm sorry, 4,250, sorry. Is that mainly postings as
Yes,
you just
that's,
mentioned?
that's mainly applications for relief from the planning board mainly. The bulk of that is for the planning board. But like I said, the smaller boards are also included in that. That's why it's a little higher than the zoning board.
Thank you. If there's no questions, then we can move on to zoning board?
Sure. So the zoning board is differentiated because the zoning board are the only members of the city's commissions that do get paid. They receive $1,200 a year from, as acting members. Again, the total recommended amount was $13,950. That was to cover 2 associates and 5 full-time members. Printing and mailing is $1,000, and again, advertisement, which was $3,580, has been removed. Then there's $650 to office supplies, and that's basically for files.
So same question as Councilor Rodriguez made earlier. Is the advertisement for the zoning board mainly dealing with statute, like?
Yes, yes. We're averaging 8 cases a month for this year. It was the highest ever. And so that would probably, they usually run about $400, $300 an advertisement, so it's up there.
Councilors, any questions? Seeing none, thank you again, Director.
Okay, thank you.
We now move on to Lawrence Fire Department. Chief, if you can state your name and title for the record, please.
Yeah, I was just getting my stuff ready. Chief Brian Moriarty, Chief Lawrence Fire Department, 65 Lowell Street. Councils, we submitted our budget to the mayor this year as level staffing. Our funding increases that we had put in were contractual only. We did ask for a few extra things. Some of them were added, some were not. I'm open for any questions, but in the end result, we're $15,787 higher than last year.
So I do have a few questions.
Yeah.
So first, starting with the change, so I see that the Assistant Fire Chief is being put into this budget.
I did not put it in.
I'm sorry?
I did not put it in. It's put in by the mayor's office.
Okay. Councilors, are there any questions? Councilor Rodriguez.
Chief, it looked like your budget is pretty decent compared to other public safety institutions, and I'm glad that that is happening. So basically, there is any specific cuts that the mayor's office made in your budget that were not requested?
Cuts?
Yeah, cuts.
I didn't ask for any cuts.
No. If there were cuts from them coming to your department.
Yes, we were cut, I don't know if cut's the right word, but there's something called a lost time factor. What that equates to, and somebody correct me if I state it wrong, but if somebody were to retire and we have a vacancy, the lost time factor is considered the time it takes us to, from the time that person retires until we hire someone again. Let's say it took us 3 months, it's assumed that 3 months is considered a lost time factor. Now, that would, I personally don't like that because right now I'm fully staffed, for one thing. And so if nobody retires, I'm going to be $300,000 short in my payroll. So that's the one of the reasons I don't like it. The other thing is $300,000, the average basic firefighter, I think is approximately $68,000 a year. So I would have to lose 5 firefighters for the entire year to cover $300,000. So I don't like that. And I asked for an increase in the overtime. As you are aware, I'm asking for that for last year's budget, and I did not get an increase. But I can't call that a cut, I just didn't get the increase.
Councilor Rodriguez, I know you have the floor, but you said you asked for increase in overtime. Since the fire department, there's several sort of like split. Is there a specific place where you were asking for overtime?
Well, we asked for overtime, we asked for $25,000 additional for admin, the fire prevention officers, and we asked for $1.3 million, which was, how much more overtime is that? 450? 450,000 higher than what were given last year. So those are the two places where we had asked for the overtime.
So I just want to make sure that we're talking about page 82. Is that where you're at right now?
I just was doing it from memory, sorry.
Because there's several
Page-
sections.
Page 82 is I have the lost time factor in there. And that is, the overtime is listed as $950, which is the same as last year, which you know see last week wasn't enough.
Councilors, Councilor Rodriguez, you had the floor.
Yep. So going back to the lost time factor, I actually have a question mark on, going back to that lost time factor, when I was looking at your budget, I actually have a question mark on that. So if we put it in the way that you actually explain it here, so that means that you're short 5 to 6 firefighters, the equivalent?
That is it's a guess number, a rough number, and it would, to make up $300,000, I would have to lose roughly 5 firefighters, basic firefighters, brand new, not officers, deputies, for an entire year. They average somewhere around, is it 68,000? Right around 68,000, so, you know, it doesn't work out evenly, but it's in that general area.
Gotcha. Usually the number is 150,000, but this year was 300,000
Well,
for the lost factor.
I don't like having it at all, period, but last year it was 150, that's correct. I didn't put it in, if you're asking that. There was 150 last year. And if you're wondering, we're currently fully staffed.
So when, Councilor Rodriguez, you yielded the floor? Okay. So just going back to that overtime question. So I think the reason I'm confused is just that there are different sections within your budget that talks about overtime.
Right.
When you're talking about overtime, you're talking about overtime for fire suppression, or you're talking about overtime for some of the other?
Fire suppression and the fire prevention, which are the guys who get called in for fires, nights, weekends, investigations, the club inspections that we have to go out and do, the 402s. Yes.
Okay.
Those two areas.
So that could be found on page 82, and the mayor's recommendation was 950,000, but I see that there wasn't a recommendation in FY '22. I'm sure that there was. Are you able to give us a little bit more information on that, or maybe?
I asked for 1.3 million,
Last year or this year?
both.
Okay. I'm sorry, I'm just like looking through. So nowhere here.
I had
do
to
see-
submit a letter of we had to submit the budget as it was last year, other than contractual obligations. And if we wanted any increases, we had to submit a letter explaining what the increases were and why we wanted them. I did do that. That gets submitted to the mayor's office. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Counselor De Rosario? I think Counselor De Rosario was trying to tell me what code overtime was. Okay, I see it now, so 5130. So you asked for 1.3.
That is correct.
Last year, you guys did 1.2. We're currently at almost 1.1.
What,
as of April.
currently?
So, I'm sorry, I mean.
You mean
as
currently
as
this
of
year?
April 6, as of April 6, you were almost at 1.1. Where are you now?
We're forecasting for the end of the year to be,
As of today, as of last payroll, we're
1.240
1,240.
as of the last payroll, but we're not obviously done. And there's no frivolous overtime there.
Okay, and as you were given 950 last year, what my guess is you'll be coming back to the council and getting that money out of free cash? Okay.
I thought you were on, was it?
I could have been, yeah.
You were here last week. I know, it's busy for you week too, I know. I had a busy day that night, I remember dropping my stuff in front of you, but, I get the same this year as I got last year, and I asked for more both years. Asked, but just didn't get.
Councilor Rodriguez.
Chief, last year we have on the stipend section, so 237,000. Last year we have an increase in from 200,000 to 237,550. This year level funded. Last year, your explanation was that during COVID there was a lot of firefighters that were home. They were taking some trainings, and they got 2% increasement automatically on their salary, and that covered with the stipend line item. So is that the case this year?
If you're talking about stipends, educational stipends, they do, the online training continued, so yeah, they're gonna it's easier for them. And I don't have a problem with it being easier for them, because if they're training, they're smarter, they're more educated, hopefully will be better firefighters. So I don't have a problem with them online training, and they do it, and they have to submit it, the graduation certificate to us, so we know that they did the hours, so.
So the last year we have an increasement on that portion of 37,500 because of the online training. So this year you're expecting to have an increase on that line item, or 237,550 will be enough to cover that specific section?
It's always a little bit of a guesswork, but we're thinking it'll be pretty much the same. And I say it's guesswork because if they don't take the courses, they don't get the money. So they have to do the work or they don't get paid, but if they do the work, we have to be able to pay them.
Those trainings, those are something that you authorize first, or that's something that they can take anywhere?
No, they can't take it anywhere. It has to be through the academy or funded, not funded, but it has to be through the academy approved, through a through level or through NARAC, which does a lot of stuff with that, like the active shooter stuff. So those things, if they do on their own, and an active shooter class, they actually attend. So, and if they actually attend it, they can't be doing it on duty. That doesn't count then. They'd have to do it on their own time.
And if they attended, they need to do it on duty, but if they are,
I tell them this.
if they are attending, they have to be off duty, but the online training, it could be on duty.
Well, it's not supposed to be, and not everybody has a computer, but I'm not sitting here watching them either.
Gotcha. That's something that you keep record of for every employee. They have to take this training, and that training, and you keep it on their file.
I misunderstood what you said.
That's those trainings that they take every year, the 30 hours training for them to get a 2% increase. That's something that you keep on everybody's file, every employee have a file, and then you put that as
that-
part of their training?
They submit it to us and we keep it, but I don't keep it during the year because it means nothing unless they get the credits. So they submit it and they keep their own training record, and it stays with us that way, correct?
So, but that's something that you keep track of it, or they keep track of it and then show it?
They have
and
to
that way-
keep track of it and submit the proof.
Got you. And then for every year, they get 2%? if
Every
they
year,
get-
they have to do it every year.
Yep.
So if they do it all this year, they got to do it all again next year.
And they have to be different training or the same trainings?
They could be the same. It just has to do it all again in that time frame. Because some things change, you know. A lot of things change in the fire service. They say every 5 years, the job's different, which
Yeah,
is
I
pretty
mean,
accurate,
I
especially
can-
with building
I can see
construction.
that, like, it's a different thing. But I also can see that it's a lot of repetitive things
We
that they
do,
already
we
know.
do a lot of repetitive training in the fire service. Builds muscle memory, builds knowledge, but this kind of stuff is usually, it goes through, especially where the academy runs them, they kind of go through them and have their trainers review them and update them annually and make sure that they're up to today's codes and stuff, or if any new science came out and changes the way they look at things. Building construction's always changing. In the last few years, we never saw podium construction. Now we see it everywhere. And that's where the first floor is steel and then wood above that. You look at Union in Canal Street, the bank they're building, podium construction. The first floor is all steel frame, 3 floors of combustible wood above that. It's called podium construction. You didn't used to see that years ago. That's new, it's something new.
All right, just wondering. Thank you so much.
Yep,
Chief,
sir.
well, first, are there any councils that have questions? So Chief, so my question is an overall question. I think with all the new development that has happened in the last 10 years, I am constantly talking about how these development and the new growth and, you know, the amount of people that are living in the city, the effect that that has in public safety. So I guess my question to you is, seeing that, you know, even more developments are coming up in the next few years. How are you feeling as far as not just this budget, but like the staffing? Do you see us having to hire more firefighters? You know, like I know that you know, I have heard some concerns, especially around you know, the station that's right here, central office, that, you know, where, you know, the question on certain folks' mind is like, you know, do we have enough firefighters to cover the, you know, this area, especially knowing that, you know, pretty soon, like I think at some point this week there's inaugurating 200 units, or something like that. You know, like there's always like, you know, units coming into.
It is a big draw for us, and it's a kind of we need help in some areas, and in other areas we're doing okay. Things that I like about all this new construction in the mills, especially the old mills when they're remodeling them, is that they're bringing them up to today's standards. They're taking a big wide open mill, heavy timber construction building, where a fire would race through the whole floor and you wouldn't be able to stop it, to a compartmentalized cleaner, getting rid of a lot of those oils. They're being covered with new types of flooring. Some are putting concrete down and tiles over that, but hiding all that oil away from the fire. Installing brand new and high efficiency fire alarm systems and sprinkler systems. So that, I feel, is good for us as far as the large mill fires. I think that'll help reduce that. The other side of that is it increases the pest alarms, the nuisance calls. We call them smells and bells. You know, you're cooking, and we have a big problem in this city of people not staying with their stove when they're cooking. And of course, something starts to burn, it puts a little smoke. Now we have smoke detectors and fire alarms everywhere. The alarm systems goes off. It happens in all the homes. We do, monthly, we probably do 40 food on the stove calls a month, which is a lot. So we have those kind of calls. We have a lot more medicals. A lot of people living here. We have a terrible time getting around this city with the amount of vehicles that are in it. We have, I can't believe we have as many vehicles in the city as we do for a city as small as it is. It's so difficult getting down certain streets that a lot of our trucks are just sending the first due or the deputy getting down the street, investigating before they actually try to commit to the street because it's so tricky. And And with our ladder trucks, we have to position where we are in between cars because the outriggers have to go out so we can put the ladder up. So that's a hard thing. I'd love to see us have another pump in South Lawrence. We only have a pump and a ladder in South Lawrence. A lot has gone on down there. I've put in for a grant to try to improve, get a new ladder truck instead of ladder 4. And I would like to get a quint, which is, it's a terminology that simply means it's not just a traditional ladder, it has a water tank and a pump on it, so that if those guys get there first before the engine 9 in their section of the city, they could at least fight a fire. If somebody's hanging out the window, flames are rolling out, they could actually get to fighting the fire rather than start doing ladder work. Would it be nice to have another ladder there? Yes, it would. The place that I really think that we could use some staffing is in fire prevention. The people who are going out doing the investigation, people who are doing the inspections of all these new mill buildings. Anybody who sells their house, we have to have a CO and smoke detector inspection. They have to get a cert for that. And all these clubs, their liquor licenses, we have to go out and do inspections for that to make sure that's up to code and up to standard. So fire prevention, and it's, what in my opinion, is this way in most cities, is understaffed. So if I had a chance to increase it, I would certainly want to increase fire prevention. But again, I'd also like a pump in South Lawrence. So do I think, I think we couldn't get it, if we got any smaller, we'd be in big trouble, especially if you pay any attention to the fires we have. We don't have little fires. We get late delays. Middle of the day the other day on Garden Street, I was coming down the hill on Haverhill Street. It was 2:30 in the afternoon, 2:15 in the afternoon. And we had heavy fire on arrival in the middle of the day. And our houses are close together. And they're multiple unit houses. That was a double wide 3-decker with a mansard roof and 6 units inside. A lot of people were homeless. Crosby Street, I think we had 72 people put out. So, you know, our houses are close together. They're old. They're over 100 years old. These old 3-deckers were built with BX cable, and they were designed for just to turn on the lights, and maybe you could plug in a television or a radio. Now what do we have? We have air conditioners, computers. We're all charging our cell phones. We're running our laptops. We get all different kinds of lighting going on. We have giant television, one in every room, and the air conditioners in all the rooms. The draw on that electricity causes us a lot of problems with fires. So we're a busy community. It's an old community, and that's one of the reasons we're busy. If these were all brand-new homes, I don't think we would have as many problems like that, but they're not. This is what we have. This is our community, and that's one of the reasons our guys are so good at fighting fires. Unfortunately, practice makes perfect. Not that we're perfect, we're not, but you know what I'm trying to say. We're used to seeing a lot of the same things. We know where to look. We know when you go to a 3-decker fire, if there's a fire in the first floor of the basement, the next line's going to the cock loft because it's a balloon frame building, and the fire's going to get in the basement and travel right up to the cock loft. So our guys are good at that. Our deputies, our incident commanders are quick we bang out alarm. One of the first things I did here was change our alarm card because we were getting a pump on a second alarm, a ladder truck on a third alarm. Well, now we're getting 3 pumps and a ladder on every alarm, and we've been doing that since I've been here, and it's made a big difference. We're making good stops, and we're taking care of our people as well, because you don't want to beat the heck out of these guys at one fire because they get the rest of the shift to go through. So we're trying to do it all the right way. Could we use more? Always we could use more, and we wouldn't be sitting around doing nothing. We could definitely be putting them to work and keeping us busy, and maybe even expand some of the things that we're doing. But we're just trying to keep our head above water now with the inspections. Hope I answered
Chief,
that right.
when you mentioned that you would love pump in South Lawrence, how many?
1 pump, 1 ladder.
One pump. You want?
No, I have 1 pump and I have 1 ladder.
And you want another pump?
I would love to have another pump.
Okay. So how many
That's an engine company. It would take 16. It would be 4 officers, 12 firefighters. That's what a fully staffed truck is. It's a captain, 3 lieutenants, and then the 12 firefighters. So there's 4 people can be on duty at a time. And we usually staff with 4 because somebody's sick, somebody's on vacation, somebody's on a personal. And then if 4 show up on that truck and there's somebody out on the other truck that they're down to 2, then we move somebody over there to staff. So It kind of helps us keep the overtime down, does not eliminate it by any stretch,
So adding another pump would be adding 4 other firefighters?
per shift,
Okay.
potentially, if they all came to work that day.
Counselors, any other questions?
Sure.
Counselor Rodriguez.
Chief, on page 88 of the budget.
88?
Yes. The fire electrical inspection. So you have one electrician inspector there.
Yeah, that's the electrical inspector, Kevin Mizuraka. And,
Yes. Just wondering about,
I'm sorry?
just wondering about the travel car type.
He uses his own personal vehicle, that's why.
Okay. There is a way that we can work that out on a city vehicle?
I know, city vehicle?
Yeah.
If I had any, I don't have any extra vehicles. I'm losing vehicles left and right. They're rotting out. I've been asking since 2 mayors ago for us to purchase more vehicles.
But I mean, if we're spending $4,500 on somebody else's vehicle down the road, we're probably going to be able, we can afford a
Well, I can't
vehicle with
afford to
that.
buy a $40,000 car to save $4,500 in a year. I mean, if I got the money to buy a car, I'd love to do it and give them a car. I'd love to give all the inspectors a car instead of using their own vehicle. And it gets worse when I send a guy to an academy. If I don't have a car to send them, the guys to the academies, and they have to use their own car, then that really costs us some money. So I definitely will be doing my best to put them in a city vehicle for that, if we hire anybody. Actually, we did hire. I'm waiting for them to go to the academy, and I think the first one goes in September.
All right. Thank you, Chief.
Counselor Levy?
Council President. It's just only a quick question. Are all the fire stations open right now?
Yes,
All of them?
we have all 6 stations open and fire alarms. So
And
we
fire alarm.
we run 7 buildings, 6 fire stations. Central has 2 companies, everybody else has 1.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Chief, are you fully staffed?
Yes, at the moment.
Counselors, any other questions? Chief, thank you so much for being here tonight. Thank you for all the amazing work that you do.
Thank you, councilors.
We are moving on to charter and choice schools. I don't think that there's no one here from the charter schools, choice schools.
I could speak on that. Those are cherry sheet assessments. There's not really anything to do with the schools. Those are, we get our Chapter 78 of roughly $250 million, and these are some of the assessments that the state has to offset those. There's a school, on page 104 are the school choice and charter school assessments delineated. It's $628,000 for school choice and $36.973 million for charter schools. That's really all there is. And then the next item on your agenda is intergovernmental, and that's on, pardon me, that's on page 155.
One second, Director Anello. I just want to make sure, counselors, if you are interested in, I know that some of you expressed an interest in having folks from the charter schools come by. I know Teresa did send an email. I did at least see one email go out. It could have been that they didn't have enough time. Would you guys like to see them on Monday? For the moment, we only have Lawrence Public Schools, I think the mayor's office. Would you guys like to invite the charter school folks for Monday?
If I might, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Councilor Rodriguez.
Essentially, the reimbursement, and Director Anello, correct me if I'm wrong, this reimbursement going to charter schools work similar, if not the same, as the vocational school. That we.
Yeah, I think the superintendent can explain exactly how it works, but in general, what happens is when one of our students, we receive state aid for students that are in Lawrence, and we get roughly $15,000 per student. And what happens when they go to a charter school, the state sends some of that money, or helps send some of the money to the charter school, so they subtract it from us.
Yeah, and
that's what this
essentially,
is.
it's the same idea as the vocational school. Same type of reimbursement.
No, it's a little different. The assessment we receive from the GLTS is the same as the assessment not assessment, but there are minimum contribution we have to make towards the City of Lawrence public school system. We have to fund the GLTS because that's a city, a school system as well, to meet minimum net school spending standards. The charter schools are a little different. It's when our students go to a charter school, we still get that state aid, but the state, because they have to fund the charter school as well, they'll subtract from our state aid, and they just gross it up, so they actually charge us $36 million for these charter schools, and take it away from the $255 or so million that we're receiving in this year.
But essentially, basically the same thing.
Yeah, no, so I think, Councilor Rodriguez, like, I think the point you're trying to make, that we're here, we're going to be approving a budget that's going to GLTS. We got a presentation from GLTS. So I'm hoping that, it sounds like we are aligned in thought that if we're going to be approving, what is this, $37 million, that would be great to get the superintendents of both charter schools here. So if that is the case, Councilor Rodriguez, we'd like to make a motion.
Yeah, I would like to make a motion to invite both the Lawrence Development Public Charter School and the Community Day Public Charter School to come in front of us
On Monday.
on Monday, yeah.
So a motion's been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Director Iannello, if you'd like to take us to intergovernmental assessments.
Yep, page 155. Again, these are state assessments. Most of these are state assessments from the cherry sheet, with two exceptions. The very first line is, it's just called state assessment. It's $75,000. That's an assessment from the State Retirement Board because they overpaid the city over a 15 or 20-year period, and they required us to pay that back. So we're paying it back with no interest over a 20-year period, and $75,000 is the payment due for FY23. The special education assessment is right off the cherry sheet, $83,000. Air pollution, again, is from the cherry sheet's assessment by the state towards the EPA's air pollution controls. The 1.2 million, or 1,217,000, is the Merrimack Valley Regional Transit Authority. That's, again, a cherry sheet assessment. And the Merrimack Valley Regional Planning Commission is an assessment, but isn't from the cherry sheet. They actually send us a bill for $31,510, and there's legislation requiring us to pay that amount. And then the last item is the motor RMV surcharges. Those are the, every time we ask the motor vehicle, or put a mark on somebody's to the register of motor vehicles because they owe us a parking ticket or some other funds, they mark it at the registry, and the state charges us for each one of those in the following year. So this year's assessment is really, for last year, is $288,940.
Director Iannello, the air pollution, can you repeat, what is that?
Again, the state runs it, I think it's through the EPA, the state EPA's office. They do I think they put air pollution monitoring things around the state, and they assess us for that cost. So they basically, it's a cherry sheet assessment, a state assessment to the city. I think that one's based on population.
Councilors, any questions?
Yes.
Councilor Rodriguez.
A couple of questions on these. Can you clarify a little more on the R&B subcharges?
Yeah, when somebody doesn't pay their a parking ticket or a motor vehicle excise bill, usually a parking ticket, we can mark them at the registry so that they can't renew their license until they pay up whatever's due to the City of Lawrence. So we do that quite a bit. I think it's like $15 or $20 surcharge. And so we send those into the registry on a regular basis, and they just every time they mark it, they keep track of it, and at the end of the year, they add it up and basically send us a bill in this format. They take it right out of our cherry sheet revenue, state aid.
So essentially, if somebody have a parking ticket, $25 parking ticket, then we mark it at the registry charges $20.
$20 to us, and we charge $20 to the resident.
And then that subcharge goes to the resident when
Yep. It's an additional
Get a
fee
ticket.
that they have to pay.
So essentially, this surcharge, people that decide to pay the ticket, the city will recover that money.
We would recover it when it gets paid.
Yeah, a percentage. If the person decide not to pay it, or the person pass away, or something like that, and then we don't recover that money.
Right.
So within that statute, there is anything that actually cover municipalities in terms of if somebody perhaps pass away, that they don't charge the cities and towns for that?
I'm not that familiar with it. I just know that every time we mark somebody at the registry, they charge the city $20. And it's through the cherry sheet is how they recover it from us. We never cut a check to the state. They just put it on our cherry sheet assessment, and they take it directly subtract it from our monthly state aid. So that's how they get their money.
So essentially, yes. So they, instead of sending us a check, a bill, they take it from that any aid that they
That's
send
right.
to
The
the city.
state, the 200+ million in state aid that we receive, they take these amounts monthly from us. The air pollution, the Merrimack Valley Transit Authority, and so on. They'll take it monthly.
So the Merrimack Regional Planning, that organization, that's a non-for-profit organization, right?
It's created by statute. I don't think it's a nonprofit. It's a quasi-governmental entity. It's created by one of the Mass General laws, because almost everybody in the state belongs to one of these planning commissions.
Yeah.
And so they, again, based on population, they assess us, I don't know, 35 cents per resident, and what's our bill this year is $31,510. So it's so much, I'm going to say 35 cents per resident, something like that, and that's how we get our bill.
So essentially, that organization is the one making a determination as of what project get prioritized, what perhaps tip project.
Well, they do a lot of
transportation
things,
improvement project get
they do a
prioritized
lot of
for the
things
cities.
regionally. It's a regional
Yeah, it's a
planning
regional
commission,
effort.
and Lawrence can take advantage of it. We have a representative on the board. I think the mayor has a representative on the board that he appoints to help with, they get a lot of grants. We use them for our GIS system and the assessor's office for all their mapping. So they do that for us, and all the member communities get to use it. So it's,
So, but every service that they provide, we pay for.
well, it's a set. I mean, they assess us 30,000. I mean, they might charge us for something else. I think there was a fee related to the GIS for a few thousand. I don't know if I think it's annually, but it's a nominal charge. They handle all the GIS services, so it's
essentially,
efficient for us.
Essentially, I mean, I've been following that organization for quite some time now, probably 10 to 12 years. And essentially, before, they were not quite prioritizing a lot of projects from Lawrence. And then after that, we get very active. And then we got quite a few projects coming from the TEP program from the state, the Transportation Improvement Program, going through the organization and then send it over to here to Lawrence. So I'm wondering who is the appointee from the city on that board. So if you don't know right now, you
I
can
don't
just-
know, but I'll bet Dan McCarthy knows all about it.
Yeah.
So we just missed him.
Yeah.
But we can ask him.
I would like to know, like, if we have I know that before used to be somebody from the planning department that used to sit on the board. It was, what's the name of? Teresa Park used to sit on that
Teresa
board.
Park, she was the director. I
She
mean,
was the director. At
she
some
left
point, she
there
was
to-
the president of the board, and then she
Yeah.
became the
Yeah,
director.
She left here and became the director, and now she's with Mass Development.
Yes, and essentially, that helped the city of Lawrence tremendously.
Yep.
So I'm wondering who is the one representing Lawrence on that board, and how active that person is. And because I mean, it is something that we should emphasize.
Absolutely, yeah.
And it is extremely important.
Yeah, again, I would imagine if Dan's not the person on the board, he probably knows who is. Because he deals with that organization, I'm not saying daily, but he deals with them regularly. I just don't have any interaction with the
So
planning
if you
commission.
can, if you can find out a little more about that, the organization and what is the different subcharges that they have to the city of Lawrence, and what is included on those 31,000 and what not. and
Well, the
if you can send-
31,000, as I said, doesn't include anything, it's just our assessment.
Okay, to the
Our
organization.
population times, I can get the cents, but I think it's like 31 cents per resident is what they charge, or 35
Yeah.
cents, something like that.
Just
And they
wondering
send
to
us a
see
bill
if
once a
if
year.
we not using the organization to the full spectrum of what they do, the type of service that they offer and so far. And just kind of like, you know, it might take a little bit of research to find out whether or not we're using them as much as we could, now that we don't have Teresa Park there. Just wondering, do you mind kind of like, you know, start kind of like, you know.
Yeah, I guess
putting
all I
something
can do is I
together,
would contact Dan McCarthy, see if
Yeah.
he can provide, or.
providing any
or-
type of information that we
Yeah,
have
I
on
mean,
that.
I'm sure there's a lot of information on their website, they're quite active.
No, but I mean, I wanted to know more like, you know, what we actually do.
What is
in
the city
reality.
using them for?
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
in reality,
Again,
kind
that
of.
would be, I'll ask Dan.
Thank you.
Yep.
Councilors, any other questions? Seeing none, thank you so much, Director Ianello. Is there, so before we make a motion to recess, just as an FYI, tomorrow we're going to be meeting. We're going to be meeting again at 6:30. We're going to have the Department of Public Works and Special Services, Public Health, Licensing, Water and Sewer, Veteran Services, Recreation Department, Cemetery, Parking, Council on Aging, and the Public Library. A message has been sent to all department heads that the expectations that they'll be in person unless they have previously asked for a request from the committee, and that it's a request that deals with something dealing with health. So those messages have been sent to folks. We'll make sure that another one is sent tomorrow to remind folks of that. That being said, councilors, is there a motion to adjourn? I'm sorry,
recess.
motion to recess.
So move.
Second.
There's a motion to recess by Councilor Rodriguez. Thank you. Been seconded by Councilor Levy. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. The ayes have it. Y'all have a good evening.